be here in person.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 26th Planning Commission meeting to order. If you would all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we move forward into the meeting, I'd just like to remind everyone that there is a sign-in sheet at the back of the room. We'd appreciate it if you signed in, especially if you plan to speak this evening. With that, I will start with roll call on my right.
Here. Brady here.
Roberts here.
Austin here.
Gardner here.
Simmons Lee here.
Bowden here.
Quorum is present. Consent agenda. All matters listed on this consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the Planning Commission for study. These items are considered to be routine and will be enacted upon by one motion with no separate discussion. If separate discussion is desired on an item from either the Planning Commission or from the floor, that item may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular
Brady
agenda.
here.
Roberts here.
Are there any items that any members of the
Simmons Lee
Commission
here.
would like removed from the consent agenda? Quorum is present.
Pardon me.
Yes, ma'am. The matters listed on this consent agenda have been distributed to each member of the Planning Commission. I'd like to remind everyone that these items are considered to be routine and will be enacted upon by one motion. Is there any way to make it louder? Desired on an item from either the Planning Commission or from the floor, that item may be removed from the consent agenda. Here.
Brady here.
Roberts here.
Is your microphone?
Are there any items? I think so, somewhat. The Commission would like removed from the consent agenda. Quorum is present. Is there any items?
Is that better?
Is that better? I can hear it up here. We'll do as loud as we can do. Is there any item on the consent agenda that the public would like removed from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion on approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Brady and a second by Bowden to approve the consent agenda. Sorry, McNair. I can hear it was a second by Bowden to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The public would like removed from the consent agenda. Item number 1, motion on approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Brady and a second. Divine Mercy Church, located at 505 West Main Street. There's 4 parts, rezoning, a plat, preliminary and final, and a site plan. Hold a public hearing and consider rezoning for approximately 7.48 acres from A to R4. Consider a single plat for 7.48 acres and consider a site plan for construction of a parish residence. Staff report this evening.
Good evening, Commissioners. Michelle Leininger from the planning staff.
Preliminary and final and a site plan.
I'm going to go through these individually. I'll do the plot together. It'll be set up just like your staff report is set up. You will have to take action on each item. The first item is the rezoning from A to R4 district. Just to reference where you are looking, the Divine Mercy Parish is currently located on West Main Street on the west side of town. They were annexed in 2000, and the original church facility was approved in 2002. The addition, which was the most recent, was approved in 2014. Just want to remind you that not only are you looking at the larger parish property, they're proposing to add a small square rectangle shape on the southeastern portion, so that is included in the rezoning and the plats and the site plan. And the original church Here is the zoning for the property and the surrounding property. To the north is light industrial. To the west is county agriculture. To the east is multifamily, both duplex and triplex R3 zoning. And then there's a small amount of R5 zoning to the south of that yellowish property. Further south is a city park, and again, this is along Highway 56. To the west is some staff findings. This project is consistent with the Gardner Main Street Corridor Plan. Identifies a property for multifamily use. Well, this is not multifamily use. It is a south of that civic use. That is a permitted use in that multifamily district. Again, this is along staff does note that it is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood, being that there's multifamily to the east. Really, this area is kind of a mix of commercial and industrial and multifamily properties. Civic use. That is a permitted. Staff does recommend approval of the rezoning from A to R4. And here's a suggested motion consistent with the surrounding neighborhood.
Thank you.
Being that there's
Before moving to the public hearing, I'd like to ask if anyone on the commission has had any outside communications on this item.
Other than being a member of the parish, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Staff
Okay.
does recommend approval of the rezoning from A to R4.
No.
And here's a suggested consistent with the surrounding neighborhood.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing. If anyone would like to comment on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the public record. Individuals are allotted 3 minutes, or an individual represented in a group is allotted 7 minutes. Thank you. And we will actually start with an applicant presentation if they are present.
Zoning from A to R4.
Thank you. We will now open the public hearing.
Mark McGill, represent Phelps Engineering and representing Deviation Requests as the applicant.
Individuals are allotted 3 minutes, or an individual represented
What you're going to see is the, like
7 minutes.
Michelle
We will actually start with an applicant
referenced, that we're
presentation
doing
if they're
zoning
present.
as well as site plan, preliminary plat, and final plat to bring our priest onto our property by providing him on-site housing to better serve our needs. So that's represent Phelps Engineering as the bulk of all these applications and what we're intending to do. Thank you.
Individuals are allotted 3 minutes, or an individual
What you're going to see is the, like Michelle,
Are there any others from the public wishing to speak on this
we're
item?
doing zoning as well as site plan, preliminary plat, and final plat to
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
A motion by Bowden and a second by Gardner to close the public hearing. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. The public hearing is now closed. So this is Planning Commission discussion time. Anyone have any comments, questions, or items to discuss on this? We'll start on our right. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
A motion by Bowden and a second by Gardner to close the public hearing. All right. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. I'd entertain a motion on this item. All opposed?
After review,
Motion carries 7-0.
after review of application Z-18-08 and rezoning for 7.46 acres located at 555 East Main Street, tax ID
On this, we'll start on the
CP
right.
755-0000001 and a portion of CF 221426-1017 from A Agricultural District to R4 Mixed Density Neighborhood District, and staff report dated February 26, 2019. Planning Commission recommended that the governing body approve this application. Tax ID CP
A motion by Commissioner McNair and a second by Commissioner Bowden. Any additional discussion?
A portion of CF
Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
Agricultural District.
Motion carries 7-0.
Neighborhood District and staff report dated February.
Regular agenda item 1B.
Planning Commission recommended the governing body.
I will talk about both the preliminary and final plat here. They're
Additional discussion?
relatively indifferent. This is a little
All opposed?
grainy here,
Motion carries
but
7-0.
the proposed plat is to add about 7,600 square feet down to the southeast corner of the property. This is to add enough room to provide for that parish residence structure. In addition to the lot, there's some additional right-of-way that's being added along 56. The Public Works Department has asked for an additional 20 feet of right-of-way along the highway. And then there's some easements, which are easier to see here. Some easements that will be dedicated, that strange kind of hook and line across the middle. That's a utility easement, and then there's utility easements down the east side of the property. Staff findings, they're both consistent with the comprehensive plan, compliant with the standards of the Land Development Code. All technical reports have been reviewed and accepted. The preliminary plat should be the final plat is consistent with the preliminary plat. And then the excise tax will be levied on just the portion that is due to the plat. There's discussion in the staff report about this excise tax. When the property was platted in 2014, when the large addition was put on to the church, excise tax was, well, I guess it was back in 2000, but the first part. It was paid at that time. The applicant has asked that they be reimbursed the amount that they paid on the dedication of that right-of-way, and have that subtracted from the new excise tax. So previously they would have paid $662.07 on just that right-of-way portion that we're being asked to dedicate. And the new excise tax value is $1,535.71. The excise tax amount has changed since the original platting. So they would be they're requesting to pay the $873.64. This is something that can be granted by the governing body, but we put it in here for the explanation, and that shows up as a standard condition on our staff report with the plats. The recommendation for the preliminary plat is for approval based on the findings of facts and that applicable requirements have been met. And then for the final plat, staff recommends approval with the conditions that the excise tax shall be paid prior to the signing of the plat, and that any construction plans or public improvement plans be approved by the city prior to the release of the plat for recording. And then staff recommends that the governing body accept dedication of right-of-way easements. Final plat, staff recommends approval with the condition that the excise tax shall be paid prior to the signing of the plat, and that
Does the
any
applicant have
construction
anything
plans
further to
or
say on
public
the
improvement plans be approved by the city
Okay, thank
prior
you.
to the release of the plat.
Planning
for
Commission
recording.
discussions, comments, questions, discussion items. Start on my right.
The governing body accept dedication of right-of-way.
Just out of curiosity, why was the 20 feet of right-of-way? Was it needed for some reason in some future planning?
Thank you.
It would be for if there's any further.
Does the
elevations
applicant have
of
anything
the
further to
highway.
say on
Our code outlines specific width for arterial streets, and we just want to make sure that we're getting that right-of-way dedicated when we get our chance to.
The governing body accept
I think we're-
dedication and right-of-way.
Out of curiosity, why was the 20 feet of right of way?
Any additional staff comments? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on this item on the preliminary plat.
After review of application PP-19-01, a preliminary plat for 7.46 acres located at 555 West Main Street, and preliminary plat dated January 30th, 2019, and staff report dated February 26, 2019. The Planning Commission approves the preliminary plat finding all applicable requirements have been met.
Any additional staff comments? I have a motion by Commissioner Bowden with a second by Commissioner McNear. Any additional
After review
planning
of
commission
application
discussion?
PP-19,
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
preliminary plat for
All
7.46
opposed?
located at 555
Motion carries
West
7-0.
Street, and preliminary
Entertain a
plat
motion
dated
on the
January
final
30th,
plat.
2019, and staff
After
report
review of
dated
application FP 19-01, the final plat for 7.46 acres located at 555 West Main Street,
I have a motion
and the
by
final plat dated
Commissioner
January
Bowden,
30,
second by Commissioner
2019, staff
Any
report
additional
dated
planning commission
February 26,
All
2019.
in favor,
The Planning
please indicate by
Commission
saying aye.
approves the application
All
provided
opposed?
the following conditions are
Motion
met.
carries 7-0.
Number one, prior to the mayor signing
Motion
the
on the final
approved reportable plat, excise tax showing paid in the city. Number two, construction plans for any utilities, infrastructure, or public facilities shall meet all technical specifications and public improvement. Plans shall be permitted and approved prior to the release of the plat for reporting. And recommends the governing body accept the dedication of right-of-way and easements.
Second.
Number one, prior to the
A motion by Commissioner McNear and a second by Commissioner Bowden. Any additional discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item 1D, site plan.
Last part of the project is for the site plan for the residents. Again, here is the overall plan for the property. Zoom in here. This is specifically the southeast corner of the property, where we're looking at a 3,108 square foot residence with attached garage, and then a 624 square foot detached garage. You can see the driveway. We've taken into consideration residents. Striping out some of the parking stalls to allow for access. Zoom in here. This is specifically there will be landscaping around the property. Here is a rendering of the front of the house. Includes brick, veneer, stucco, lap siding. You can see some nice pitch roofs and emphasis on the entry to the house. Staff findings: the accessory residence uses compliance with the standards of the Land Development Code. Structure is compatible with the church facility and adjacent residential in relation to the architectural design. No additional site standards or administrative adjustments are necessary on this site plan. Staff does recommend approval of the site plan with the emphasis on the entry to the house. Conditions outline that the rezoning shall be approved and ordinance published, and the final plat shall be approved and recorded with Johnson County. Facility and adjacent residential in relation to the architectural design. No additional site standards or administrative adjustments are necessary on this site plan.
I do have a question. The community garden, how are you going to access that when the parish center looks like it's going over the road?
Conditions outline that the rezoning shall be approved and ordinance published, and the final plat shall be approved and recorded with Johnson County. Proposed driveways are
Is that it? To get to the garden?
Yep, so it'll go down and come around and then hit the existing drive.
I just missed that. How are you going to access that when the parish center looks like it's going over the road?
Conditions outline that the rezoning shall be approved and ordinance published, and the final plat shall be approved.
Entertain a motion on this item.
after review of application SP 1804, a site plan for 555 West Main Street, a site plan dated February 11, 2018, and staff report dated February 26, 2019, the Planning Commission approves the application provided the following conditions are met. A, rezoning Z 1901 shall be approved and ordinance published. And B, final plat FP 1901 shall be approved and recorded at the Johnson County Records and Tax Administration prior to the release of the building permit. Application SP 1804, a site plan for 555.
The motion by Commissioner Brady with the second by Commissioner Bowden. Any additional Plan Commission discussion?
Dated February 26, 2019.
Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Shall be approved and ordinance published. And B,
Regular agenda item number 2, Waverly Plaza.
approved and recorded the Johnson County Records and Tax Administration.
Located at the northeast corner of West Santa Fe Street and Waverly Road. Item A by Commissioner Brady with the second by Commissioner Bowden. Hold a public hearing and consider rezoning for approximately 13.10 acres from CP2 Planned General Business and RP3 Planned Garden Apartment Districts to CP2 Planned General Business and RP3 Planned Garden Apartment Districts, and an associated preliminary development plan for Waverly Plaza. Located at the northeast corner of West
Good
Santa
evening,
Fe Street
Commissioners.
and
Michelle
Waverly
Liner,
Road.
Principal Planner.
Item A.
This will be presented the same way that the previous item was presented, being that it's got multiple applications.
From CP2 Planned General Business
First,
and
the rezoning,
RP3
just to give you some reference, the subject properties are outlined in blue. It's at the corner, the northeast corner of Waverly Road and Santa Fe Street. To the east is Principal Planner. This will be multifamily development, RP3, as is to the north. To the east, or to the west, sorry, is R1 single family. And then to the south, there is a mix of C2 commercial and R1 single family. Currently, the property is vacant. To the east is, just to kind of clarify, I know this rezoning is a little confusing the way it's stated. On the left are the current boundaries, zoning boundaries of the property. The large piece of property is currently zoned CP2, and it has an associated preliminary development plan with it called Waverly Point. Still on the current zoning boundaries map, the pie-shaped property on the east, zoned RP3, is currently associated with a preliminary development plan for the reserve at Waverly Point. The applicant is proposing to change the boundaries as what you see on the right. It's realigning the commercial and the multifamily, shifting the boundaries to the west, and then reassociate a brand new preliminary development plan for all of that property. Staff findings for the rezoning, it's generally consistent with the comprehensive plan, while it is a shift from some commercial to multifamily as shown on the comprehensive plan. You need to remember that the comprehensive plan is a general guide. Also, the property to the north that is identified for multifamily that is owned by the school district will not be developed as multifamily. So it's really a reallocation of the proposed land uses directly adjacent to the property. The overall plan is compatible and in character with the neighborhood. It provides appropriate transitions from commercial to higher density multifamily, to a lower density multifamily, and then to single family. The site is suitable for the uses for which it has been restricted, though potentially no longer feasible. Originally, the large parcel was identified to be all commercial. The applicant has tried to secure tenants for the spaces as proposed, and market has not allowed for that development. So while it is suitable, it's really no longer feasible as previously approved. The rezoning will not detrimentally affect nearby properties, as it's just a reallocation of the existing zoning districts. Uses will not adversely affect the capacity of safety of utilities, infrastructure, public services. The applicant will be building 2 new streets, Washington and the continuation of North Laurel, improvements to West Santa Fe will be completed by the city this spring. Is when it's set to begin. That will be a road reconstruction from where the highway splits off of Santa Fe Street, just past the intersection. There'll be not only road improvements and upgrades to the intersection, there's going to be upgrades to utilities in the area also. And then we are currently engineering the improvements, similar improvements to Waverly Road from just south of that intersection up to, at a minimum, Madison, if not beyond. So the infrastructure and utilities are going to be greatly improved. Just to give you some reference as to where this plan process has gone, this is part of the Waverly Point preliminary development plan. This is the one that was approved in 2007. There was one that was actually approved prior to this, which showed where you see these townhouses, more of fourplex kind of pinwheel designs. In the 2007 version, it was changed to this plan in its entirety, and there's more to the east, included stormwater detention. There was a revision to the previous plan, and it was just specifically for a portion of the townhome area. And really, all the revisions were to show future lot lines. The townhomes are split and do have properties associated with it, so we needed to see how that was going to play out. And then it identifies many tracts that are owned by the HOA for open space. Townhome area. Here is a site rendering for the proposed development. The properties on the east, or on the west, excuse me, in red are retail spaces. And then the properties that show up in yellow on the east are the residential portions. You can see that there's 5 retail buildings, and then there's 5 3-story apartment buildings. There's actually another garage that isn't shown in here, but 5 garages. 5 must be the magic number. And then a clubhouse and pool. You can also see on here the completion of Laurel Street with parking along it. And then this says 174th Street. It will be Washington Street. There is some additional parking along there, and some turn lanes once you get to the intersection of Washington and Waverly. And then clubhouse and pool. This is the actual site plan, not as colorful and fun to look at, but nonetheless has lots of details. This makes up 3 commercial lots and associated parking. Just to remember that this is a preliminary development plan. We're not going to see detailed renderings. We're not going to see landscaping. we're not going to see those details. Those come with the final development plan, and those applications will also come before the Planning Commission at a later date. With this portion of the commercial property, there's approximately 59, almost 60,000 square feet of retail, and you'll note that there is access, a shared access on the south to West Santa Fe Street that gives you access to both the multifamily and the retail. There's access to the retail from West Washington Street, and then an additional right-in, right-out access onto Waverly Road. Almost 60,000 square feet of retail. Here is a general rendering of what the properties would look like. The commercial are one story. You'll see one building that has more details to it. This is just to give you some sort of idea of what the developer has in mind for details and such. Some things to note is that there's a lot of connectivity on this site, lots of sidewalks to from the site also out to the trail. As part of both the Waverly Road project and the Santa Fe project, the city will be installing 10-foot recreational trails on the north side of Santa Fe and on the east side of Waverly Road. So there will be pedestrian connections from those retail buildings out to allow for people to travel along those public ways and then come into the site. There's also sidewalks connecting from the multifamily into the site for retail. The idea is that you can live here and you can also come next door and shop and eat and all without getting in your car. Here is the commercial, or the multifamily side of the project. This includes 144 units, a clubhouse and pool, and 5 accessory garage structures. Again, there's a significant amount of connectivity between these buildings and to the clubhouse, to the commercial, to the sidewalks that will be along the road and to the trail. They are proposing to utilize on-street parking with some 60-degree parking stalls and clubhouse and pool that has reduced in size from what was originally proposed. And these will be three-story buildings. They'll have secured access at the doors, and then the applicant is telling us luxury apartments that have all kinds of luxury amenities, high-end fixtures and such. Here are some renderings that have been provided. You can see the secured first floor entrances, the patios and for each unit, the clubhouse and the pool. This shows some landscaping and such. Here are some. There have been lots of comments, and you did receive some additional comments prior to the meeting, and then tonight there were some that were inadvertently left off. If you did not get a copy, if you did not see the copy of what I emailed you, please let me know, and I will provide you paper copies. I do have some paper copies, and this is addition to what was in your packet. So you should have gotten an email from me Friday or Monday, and then additional ones from this evening. Staff did host and moderate a neighborhood meeting. We sent property owners invitation and had over at the senior center a meeting so that the applicant and developer and staff and any interested parties could come and see the proposed development, ask questions, voice concerns. The biggest concern that we heard is the clubhouse and pool. What you see before you is changed even from what is in your staff report, and you do have copies of the new proposal. The only thing that has changed is the pool and clubhouse parcel. This is a zoom in of it. One thing I want to point out right away is east of the pool, you see this is 17 parking spaces. That is not the location of the parking spaces. That just states that there are 17 parking spaces associated with that site. If you'll notice on some of the other lots, it'll say 34 parking spaces, etc. This just happens to be in a green space. No parking on the site, all the parking is on the street. So the applicant is proposing to divide tract A into A1 and A2. This is the rear of that property, the corner, and then 5 feet that runs behind the adjacent townhomes. These townhomes have fences with gates that open up to the back. They had anticipated that that area would be open space for the development, so they all have gates out the back. The applicant is trying to provide them with space to get in and out of their backyards and to be able to access their open space for their development, which is up to the east and to the north of this property. So the applicant is proposing to dedicate tract A2 to the Townhome Neighborhood Association to be part of their open space. Again, what you don't see in here is the landscaping. By code, the applicant is required to provide landscaping between the uses. That not only will help with the noise. There's not really any landscaping out in this open space area, so it can get loud with voices and such, kids running around. But it also allows for privacy of those using the pool. So those details are things, again, that you would see at the final development plan phase. Here's just kind of a color rendering showing some of those landscaping, showing what the proposed new property line would be, and that space behind the southern townhome structure that would allow for those property owners to access their properties from the back. And again, you can see that there's no parking stalls on the property. Findings for the preliminary development plan. This could not be accomplished through strict application-based zoning district, mostly because of the accessory structures. And that's noted in the staff report that really the accessory structure section is aimed more towards single family. And that's something that we identified to look at as a revision to the code in the future. The plan reflects generally accepted and sound planning and urban design principles with respect to applying the comprehensive plan. Again, it provides for transition between densities and intensities from the commercial to the single family uses. I'm just going to go through some of these deviation requests quick. There were 9 deviation requests. The first 2 are regarding accessory structures, as I stated. The code states no more than 1 per lot. They're proposing 5. This is a amenity for the site. With the exception of townhome rental properties, there really isn't any sites in Gardner that have that amenity option for renters. And then again, for the accessory structures, minimum of 1,200 square feet. Obviously, if you have 50 garages or 5 garages, totaling 50 parking stalls, you're going to need deviation to allow for the size. Staff does support both of those deviations. The next 2 are regarding frontage, design, and applicability. The applicant would like to maintain the buffer edge frontage type along the entire development for consistency reasons. They're trying to make it look compatible and keep the same streetscape. So there's a different frontage type required along Waverly and East Santa Fe Street, and then along North Laurel. And staff supports the deviation to allow for the consistency of the buffer edge frontage type for these. The next deviation is for, well, this is again for the buffer edge. There was 3 of them. Sorry, I thought there were 2. Already stated the reasons for staff supporting that. Number 6, and these numbers do correspond with the numbers of the deviations in your staff report. Number 6 is a request for sidewalks along any parking with vehicle overhangs, a minimum of 8 feet wide. This is specifically in the residential portion of the site. Proposed, they have 6 foot wide sidewalks that run along most of the parking in front of the buildings or that front the building. The issue is that the proposed parking stalls are then shortened and to allow for that overhang, and so if you reduce them down to 6 feet wide and then you account for approximately 2 foot overhang, it really narrows those sidewalks down. So this is a deviation that staff recommends not be approved, and you will see as a condition of approval on the staff recommendation. Parking stalls are then shortened. Number 7. Again, regarding sidewalks, the primary route between the street or parking area and the building entrance. So it's not the sidewalk along the parking, but from that sidewalk to the building entrance, or from the street to the building entrance. Those are shown on the plan overall, both the commercial and the residential, between 5 and 6 feet wide. Again, staff feels that this is important for allowing people to pass each other, to allow for doors to be opened and people to either wait to the side as somebody comes out, for people to pass with strollers. It's important to allow for that 8 foot wide sidewalk from the door specifically to the other access. So that's a condition of approval that staff is recommending. The next deviation request, number 8, is for the required parking reduction. On-street parking, our code currently allows for counting on-street parking within 600 feet of any lot frontage at a 3-to-1 ratio. The applicant is requesting that they be able to count all of the parking stalls on the street, specifically on that portion of Laurel adjacent to their multifamily, and then the portion of Washington adjacent to their multifamily. Their reasoning for this is that there's not likely that anybody else around it will utilize the parking. The multifamily on the east side of Laurel faces Shawnee Street. It's likely with all the fences and such that visitors, owners would park on Laurel Street. You may get 1 or 2 people from north of Laurel Street with the townhomes, maybe park down here. Again, it would be pretty minimal. So staff does support this deviation. The last deviation request is for required bicycle parking. This is 1 per dwelling unit bicycle parking if you're within distance of a trail. And as I stated before, there's a trail going in along the north side of Santa Fe Street, so this is applicable here. 144 bicycle parking spaces is a significant amount. Again, this is something staff has realized and will be looking into as something that we need to tweak. The applicant has proposed 80 spaces, 50 in garages, and 30 outside. Staff is supportive of this. It's likely if you have a bicycle that you're riding on a regular basis that you would probably either put it in your garage or bring it up to your apartment. But the 30 outside spaces allows for, staff believes, ample parking outside. Staff does recommend approval of Z 1901 and PDP 1901 for Waverly Plaza, and recommends forwarding the application to the governing body with the conditions. Couple of these conditions are just housekeeping things. The item one, you see a grade fence off the property by the clubhouse on certain pages and not on certain pages. That needs to be removed. That is an error. Number 2, update the on-street parking count on the first parking block. On the north, it says 9. There's actually only 7 stalls there. And then update the parking data information. Number 3, similar situation, update the parking count of the center east parking block along the drive on the east side of the property. This is specifically talking about the multifamily, so then put that in there. Multifamily, it's really that center drive that goes between the commercial property and the garages and then the multifamily structures. Again, it shows 10 parking stalls there, but if you count them, there's only 9. And then the next 2 are from the deviations. Revise any sidewalks along any parking with vehicle overhangs to be a minimum of 8 feet, and revise sidewalks which are primary routes between the street or parking area to the building entrance to be a minimum of 8 feet wide. And then the next
Thank you.
2 are
We will now open the public hearing. If anyone would like to comment on this item, please come forward and state your name and address for the public record. Individuals are allotted 3 minutes, or an individual representing a group is allotted 7 minutes. We will start with an applicant presentation, no longer than 15 minutes. Is the applicant here? We will now open the public hearing. If anyone would like to comment on this item, please come forward and state your name and address. Oh, thank you. Individuals are allotted 3 minutes. Prior to for an individual representing the applicant, any ex parte contact on this item and whether they're for or against, proponents or opponents.
10 years ago, I was involved in the first 2 plats, the sale and development of Waverly Point in the single-family section. I have not had contact with the builder or developer probably the last 7 or 8 years. I just wanted to put that into the record that I had been involved in this 10 years ago when Waverly Point was first opened.
Thank you.
No contact.
No contact.
No contact.
No contact.
No contact.
No one's contacted me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir. Applicant.
Sounds like a lot of people want to have contact with me. My name is Philip DeVilbus, and my sons and I, Greg DeVilbus and Danny Kirk, my son, we build only beautiful properties, and we try to build something that will be so nice that there won't be competition that can even better it or make it the same, because we're here first. We waited a long time to develop this property. I started buying it 14 years ago and have owned it for 12. And we've had a lot of opportunities to put things there that wasn't in the keeping of what the people wanted when they talked to me about buying it for expansion of that part of town. Carol Lehman first asked us if we'd be interested in that piece. We bought it. We sat on it. We've had offers. And recently, I thought these people would be really happy about what we're doing. And we could have had and planned to have a grocery store. And they decided, the city did a study, had paid for a study, and it was decided that they would go ahead and build the new Price Chopper down there. And within 24, 48 hours, we pulled out a plan, I did, to build 220 apartments on that site, and it holds it. The problem is it wasn't as livable as I wanted it to be. So what we did was we took one whole building out, reduced 3 buildings to 24 rather than 36, and added much more grass and sidewalks to make it a place that people could be proud to live and enjoy where they're living rather than playing in the parking lot. The contention of these people would have the signs in their yard and all that about save our yards, I listened to. I've been out of the country and stayed longer than I wanted to for a medical emergency. But if you would pick up, do that last plan that you had on the piece of
Just the clubhouse?
the clubhouse. The colored one, right. If you folks in the audience will look, no, that's not the one. The one that shows the new look. That is the one?
That is a new one.
Oh, okay, there. I hadn't seen it with the landscaping before. The townhouses that are to the bottom that have the backyard fenced with a gate to go out there. They obviously were told, because that's what they're saying, is the developer before me decided, told them that they would have use of that back there. I had no idea. When it became available, I bought it. It was open to anybody. And I decided that this is where we would put the clubhouse, which allowed me to have more green space in the apartment complex. In the last 24 hours, what I've done by listening to these folks is that I came to the city and I said, if they want me to fence in the pool and leave that back open, that's my property and I own it. I could have put on the site, the big site of 15 acres that I've had all these years. We had a contract for it from Marcus Millichep, the realtors out of Los Angeles, to put a diesel engine for these big trucks repair shop. And it's a real thing. And I could have netted more money than I'll make in my lifetime, because I'm 80+ years old. I decided that that wasn't the thing that I wanted to do, and I would put something there that would be attractive and beneficial to the whole community. These folks would have no right to use Laurel or Washington if I decided to make it a public street with the city. That road was supposed to be put in by that same developer that told them he was going to develop this thing and they would be able to have free walk. Didn't happen. Didn't happen. He has no money to build on that property, and he couldn't build it without building a street. So it didn't happen. I'm allowing with the city to not have it a private street, and they can get out of their Waverly Point right now one way, one entrance. By hooking onto Laurel Street that we're making available, and I own the ground underneath it, that's for free for the road, they can get out to Waverly. They now will have sidewalks along 175th Street and along Waverly, because myself are building this project and the city wants to help, so they're even helping build larger sidewalks. So now they have access to the schools by sidewalk. Everybody talks about livable. They have no livable. They have no shops. They got a convenience store. I could have put a small grocery store with a filling station there, but I didn't want to do that on the corner because there's a filling station across the street. Not interested in hurting anybody and didn't want the filling station anyway. Now if you look at this thing, to the bottom townhouses, we're going to deed to the homeowners association, that's our proposal, a 4-foot strip. It'll be grass, but they'll come out on it, and between their stockade fence, I'm not going to build a stockade fence, I'm going to build a nice fence, and they will have a path to walk all the way around what you see now, and I'm giving that property to the HOA. They can do whatever they want to. If they didn't like this, they could give me the right to use all their property there that the HOA has that were given to them free by Ken Rogler. And they can walk through mine if they want to, and I can use theirs for what I want to. That didn't seem like a good idea to the city, and I agreed. So I said, okay, we'll make it possible for these people to be able to use that with their own path, not take down their fence, have plenty of room, and go right to their property that they want to play on, and that's it. I don't know how I could make this any better or any plainer. That's all I have.
Thank you. Do any of the commission, we do questions? No? Okay. So we'll go to the next public comment.
My name is Diane Owen, and I live at 131 North Pear Street. My husband and I have lived in Gardner since 2003, and we bought in Waverly Point in 2009 during phase 1 of the builder's original plan. I have 2 children who attend Madison Elementary, and I'm the president of the Waverly Point Master Homes Association. Over the past few weeks after learning of the rezoning proposal, the neighborhood has met several times to discuss our thoughts and our concerns. And let me begin by saying we welcome the original zoned retail that we were promised and expecting. But we oppose the rezoning and do not want apartment complexes in the land to the west of our neighborhood. Our concerns include increased traffic and parking issues and decrease in our property resale value. Madison Elementary is already over capacity, so any increase within this proximity would ultimately push other neighborhoods west of Waverly Road into elementary and middle school boundary changes. And as we found out last spring during the proposed boundary changes, this could be upsetting to many other neighborhoods as well as ours. According to the market analysis from April of 2018 on the Gardner website, it stated as of 2015, children and adults younger than 44 years old accounted for 77% of the population in Gardner. This compares to Johnson County, where 61% of the population is less than 44 years of age. It also states that the number of owner-occupied housing units dropped from a high of 72% to 64%. and the number of renter-occupied units increased from 21 to 30%. The rate of growth in renter-occupied housing has been faster in our city than in Johnson County. For example, since 2000, the number of renter-occupied housing units in Gardner increased at an average annual rate of 6% compared to the Johnson County, where renter-occupied units increased only by an average annual rate of 2.2%. With the current information, we feel that Gardner is creating more of a pit stop atmosphere where young families come until their financial situation betters or increases. And then without enough properties encouraging family growth or the next step, they're forced to leave Gardner to find better housing options, thus not planting firm roots in our city. The constant rentals and in and out residents decreases our resale value across the city as a whole because families have no long-term vested interest in our city. And those that did become discouraged and they want to leave. This is not the Gardner that we want to continue to build. During the meeting with the builder and the architect on February 13th, the architect addressed our property value concerns and referenced a study done on a similar project, apartment complex located on 87th in Quivira. He said that the neighboring homes were valued in the $350,000 range, and the study showed an increase in value after the apartments were built, which contradicts our concern. However, this similar comparison failed to mention that the apartments were built within a half mile of several other apartment communities, miles of strip centers, including retail and restaurants, 8 blocks or walking distance from a major shopping area in Oak Park Mall on 95th Street in Quivira. Lenexa, Kansas is also referred to as the city of festivals due to their many festivals that regularly take place, including the famous Lenexa Barbecue Battle and Waterfest. Lenexa has many other area attractions, including 53 acres of recreational green space at Soka Trails Park, which features water slides, children's play areas, 2-acre lake, and more, just to name a few. According to Kansas.hometownlocator.com, the city of Lenexa is the 9th largest city in Kansas with a population of 53,000. Gardner has 21. The average income in Lenexa is $105,000 compared to $82,000 in Gardner. The average home value in Lenexa is $283,000 compared to Gardner at $186,000. Needless to say, we're having a hard time finding the similarities in the comparison with the projected property to be located next to our neighborhood, the Intermodal and Celebration Park. To make matters worse, our concerns were not only ill-compared, they were laughed at and mocked on the last 2 online city council meetings with comments such as, "I don't know what there is to complain about," and "no blood," in reference to the recent meeting with the builder. Over the last 7 years, we have homeowners have come together to clean up and maintain. I'm sorry, this is emotional for me because we have worked really hard for this neighborhood. We have come together to clean up and maintain our homeowners association financially and organizationally. We control our financials, our pool and park maintenance, our common ground care, and community regulations. We take the utmost pride in our homes, our neighborhood, and our community. We have invested countless hours and manpower into making sure our neighborhood stays safe, clean, uniform, and up to the valued regulations many of us moved here for. We know for the Planning Commission and the City Council members that this is a business decision, as none of you will be directly impacted or affected financially by this decision. We, the residents of Waverly Point, will. This is very much an emotional situation for us. We cannot provide you with the data showing property value changes, as I have pointed out comparison restraints, but we can argue resale value. If you place 2 exact replica homes, one with an apartment complex behind it and another without, the one with apartments behind it will undoubtedly decrease in resale value. Put yourselves in our shoes. Which house would you select if given the option? Our neighborhood's biggest asset is our pool, park, and clubhouse. We have had many non-residents walking from the school area through our neighborhood and trespass on private property, which has at times increased our liability as damages have occurred. We feel adding 144 rental units without direct access to the school will increase foot traffic through our neighborhood and potentially cost us, the homeowners, more money and liability and be harder to protect. Now, I do want to make a change to my thing. We appreciate the 8 to 10 feet of a sidewalk that is being added. But on this map, there is no way somebody's not going to walk through our neighborhood to get to that high school. They're not going to walk all the way around that. All of that said, we do realize our concerns will most likely be ignored in order to develop the land quickly. We are not opposed to the development, but we are opposed to the rental units. We are asking that you seriously reconsider the rezoning of this property and keep it as retail only or as originally proposed. If our voices are not heard and you feel that our concerns are without merit and this project gets passed, then at the very least, we ask that you review the location of the proposed clubhouse and pool. The new proposal has a clubhouse and pool which is to be located literally in the backyard of our townhome residence. This is the exact spot we were told by the builder that would be another townhouse unit and green space for our kids and pets. We feel that not only is it a nuisance and an invasion of our privacy, it's a slap in the face. Why should our homeowners have to overlook a completely separate apartment complex's office, clubhouse, and pool area within feet of the property line? This area has the ability to carry sound already, and adding a pool directly in the middle of it would cause major noise issues. No amount of vegetation will buffer this nuisance, thus potentially causing many fielded phone calls to the police and future management company. Before they bought this last piece of land, where would the architect have put it? We would like to invite the Planning Commission and the City Council to come out and walk the grounds with us. We invite you to come walk in our shoes for a brief moment and help us come up with a better plan for placement so that our neighborhood keeps its sense of individualism and community. We have invested our lives in this neighborhood and this city, and we ask that you consider our request to find common ground. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Strum. I'm a homeowner and a resident at 720 West Shawnee Court. If you're looking at that picture, my home is directly next to that swimming pool. To be exact, it is 66 feet from the corner of that swimming pool. Not from the corner or the property line, but from my back door. That's 66 feet from my children's bedroom, who are 3 years old and 8 months old. 13 months ago, my wife and I, we set out to find our first home, a community that we wanted to start raising our family and a place to set our roots. We looked all over Kansas Metro, and after great consideration, we decided to live in Gardner, specifically Waverly Point. And I've been very grateful for this decision that we have made. 11 months ago, we began to move into our new home located at 720. My wife was carrying our second child, weeks away from giving birth to our new little girl. The Waverly Point residents quickly embraced us, helping us move, providing meals, and even gifts to our future little girl. Yet we were new to the community. At this time, we were nothing more than strangers to them, and they opened their arms to us. I have been asked by 25 households to represent them specifically. I have a list of their names if you'd like me to read them off, or I could go ahead and hand this over to a planner.
Yeah, you can just hand that to staff.
Their letters have also been submitted as well. All of the families I represent today do not oppose the growth and the development with Gardner. What they are opposed is to the disrespect and the unethical decision and the carelessness and consideration for the adjacent and adjoining communities and homes. I do not want to stand up here and speak of the lies and the deceptions that the homeowners have been told by the previous developer. Some of those owners have been here for 10 years. Some have been there for less than 2 weeks. But they have all had the idea that the green space that is now slotted for a clubhouse and a private pool that will accommodate 144 units was supposed to remain green space and utilized by the communities and families. Now, I understand things change, nor do I care about the causes that led to those changes and the mismanagement of the previous developer, Design Homes, and Ken Roger. Now, I'm here today to share with you those voices of those 25 homes that have asked me to represent them. The plans that have been proposed show a pool and a clubhouse wedged into a community with no regard to the current established homes, forcing the homeowners and their families to deal with the minutia associated with a swimming pool for an apartment complex that will house 144 units. There are 33 homes that are directly impacted by that clubhouse pool placement. Those 33 homes have an investment of property value of nearly or over $7 million. There is no cul-de-sac in Waverly Point or the surrounding area that has that much housing property value and investment or paid property taxes to the city of Gardner in such a compact area. Those current plans are trying to force those homes to deal with the noises of kids screaming, music, yelling, that is also amplified by the surrounding buildings, the intrusion of the security and safety lights into the home windows, the foot traffic of hundreds of people that will come and go feet behind the homes, less than 66 feet to be exact. Many of those homes, I have a map if you would like it. As I stand here today, I request, as we move forward with the plans for the existing homes and the establishments are kept into considerations as if they were your families that were being affected. Do not place the burden, the disrespect upon the homes that have already established in the community and the commitment that they have already bought into in the city of Gardner. There are other options available with the use of proper communication and understanding for those around us. Both communities want green space. Only one community wants their pool to be forced where others have to deal with the negative impacts associated with a pool, such as the noise and lights, to name a few. We need to work together to find solutions that do not cause established homes long-lasting burdens for their families. Already, Waverly Point community is expected to assume the burden with the rezoning. We've been expected to take on the burden of traffic associated with commercial, as well as with the residential apartments. I have seen the studies that show that the traffic will be less than if it was all commercial. But they have failed to represent and discuss the peak times. Commercial and residential traffic have different peak times. The majority of the homes will be impacted by that traffic going to school, going to work, coming home from work, and the children going to school. More homes will be impacted by the residential other than if it was just commercial. The children of Madison Elementary will also have to assume the burden of the decisions made here tonight. Already the school is having to bus children to Edgerton. With the development of 144 units, this will cause an offset to the population and will need, and the need to bus to Edgerton, affecting families that chose the homes that they live in now, many of the reasons to go to particular schools for their children. The townhomes of Waverly Point will be affected the most out of any part of the community. Already they will have to deal with the increased volume of abundant traffic with the new road for the apartment complex and for the opposed pool and club. The swimming pool is to be wedged into a pie-shaped piece of land that is forcing the families to deal with the negative impacts of the tenant's apartment complex so that the developer does not have to disturb his tenants with those negative impacts. The pool is to be placed again 66 feet from my back door. 66 feet from the windows of my children. The people I represent want to see Gardner grow and flourish for more opportunities, more economic growth, but not at the sacrifice to those that already call Gardner home. Not by the sacrifice to those that have set roots in Gardner. Many of those homes that I have talked to talk about moving if that pool and clubhouse is forced upon them. That forcing them into a financial and emotional hardship to get away from the disrespectful and inconsiderate intrusion because they do not want to live in that kind of situation, or because they have already fought tooth and nail to remove themselves from a similar situation. I stand here to ask you to be our voice and to be our advocate for the community. For my home, that my wife and I both strive to provide for our children and for our family. Do not ask us to take on the burdens. Do not force us to flee from our homes from the mindset of progress. And don't create a place that people want to leave. Help us create the place that wants people to stay to provide stability for Gardner, to create a family that has a pride in its home and a compassion for their neighbors. Help us move the puzzle pieces around in the development to not place the burden on the townhomes. Move the pool. Don't allow the use of the land that can lead to noise, vehicle traffic, pollution, bright lights, and frankly, just overall activities that can reduce the quality and the life of those homes. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is William McGee. I'm currently at 729 West Shawnee Court, and I am the homeowners of those townhouses. I am the HOA president for the reserve. That's the townhouse community. And when I got the first call about this, it was really a kind of a surprise for me, because Ken Rogler had always communicated the aspect of putting the condo in that one area of green space. And in fact, we were maintaining the lot. We were actually mowing the lot, doing things like that to maintain that space, because it was intended for green space. And then, surprise to me, he sold the property. He didn't come and communicate that to us or anything like that. And we don't blame the developer trying to come up with something that would enhance the commercial property that's behind us. And in fact, most of us, when we bought in, we knew there was a commercial piece there, and that was attractive to us. And the fact that the builder had promised to put the townhouse homes on that parallel street where North Laurel would come out was very attractive, because it gave us a second exit out of the community. Now, our homeowners association is associated with the master, which is at Waverly Point, and you already had heard from Diane Owen. And so I went out and started polling my community for what they thought of this development and this change. And unanimously, there's several themes that came out. One of them was the shoehorning of that pool in the middle of the condo, and it just breaks the line of that whole community and how it was developed. And then the second part of it is that the amount of noise that was going to be put in there and how they could compress that space. And we really tried to figure out a way, okay, what could we do to kind of get around that? And we asked questions like, could the community owners that are around that use the pool? Be a kind of an association to that pool, even though our community already has a pool, the master. And that master pool, if we look at that, it is separated. It's like a peninsula, and it keeps the noise away. It was planned that way. So this one that comes in, it just invades our space. So the other thing I got as a unanimous response was the amount of traffic that was going to be introduced on the roads going in and out of that unit because of the density of the unit. And because it's an apartment, it doesn't have the ownership like you would have with condos or single-family homes. And so there's this aspect of people transiting in and transiting out, and that community of traffic that goes up and down that road. And even though it's associated with the commercial property, and that would drive more business to the commercial space, I can understand that side of it from the business aspect of it, but for the community as a plan, it doesn't fit. Now, if you were converted to maybe condos or something like that, might be something that would be more in line. But the biggest concern that we have is the build out of the roads around that, because of the school system, how much traffic's going to be introduced in the cut through that's a possibility coming through our neighborhoods. And then the other concern that we have on this came out was the amount of transit walking through, like going down the sidewalks or walking up through our neighborhoods. And that was very important to us for safety reasons and for providing a buffer. Now, the noise that's introduced by the clubhouse, we really can't understand. We understand the idea that you have to have a certain amount of density in the 3-story apartment complex. And we understand that they want green space, but so do we. And so there's a trade-off. It pushed back to us. Now, I understand the fact that they have to deal with this clubhouse and a pool for their apartments, But the fact is that it was a surprise to us to shoehorn it in, and it's very tight in the middle of that community there. And so majority of the responses that I got wanted this rezoning denied, and to leave it commercial all the way through. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any others wishing to speak this evening?
Is this forum set up not only just to talk, but to ask questions as well? I wasn't quite sure if I understood what was available.
Generally, no. But if you, generally, no.
Okay, well, if someone wants to answer something, then please do, so.
Okay, and if you could, state your name and address.
I will. My name is Christine Wilson, and I live at 132 North Pecan Street. So this is the second time that I've been here to voice my concerns over the development of this particular land. The first time was back in 2010, when that land was sold by Ken to an individual to put low-income apartments there, low-income housing. We spoke to the school district. They were not impressed with that idea also, and they then took that land as eminent domain, as I think many of you may or may not know. Now we're back again, fighting for the security of our neighborhood. As I said back in 2010, and Diane had stated this as well, why does the city continue to make this a stepping stone to better things? Doesn't the City Council and Planning Commission have better and bigger dreams for the city? Doesn't the City Council and Planning Commission want our city to be a destination instead of a stepping stone to a better life? While all cities need to have a mix of housing available so that we can embrace the diversity surrounding us, I feel that Gardner exceeds the opportunities for those just starting out or making minimum wage. We have so much multifamily homes already available. Why do we continue to offer this as an only option? I didn't realize when this gal was speaking earlier about the parish landing, I was curious how many multifamily homes were going in there, if there was a number. It was never discussed, so we're going to have multifamily homes there as well as this apartment complex. It continues to feel like Gardner is the one making up for the business developments in Edgerton. The introduction of the intermodal and other large businesses in Edgerton has increased the number of potential residents, but not for Edgerton, for Gardner, which is great, but only if it is done thoughtfully and not in haste. Also, I understand that the widening of 175th and Waverly Roads will begin soon. I'm curious if the analysis done to determine traffic needs for this area was done prior to the announcement of the 144-unit apartment complex or after. I cannot tell from the design if these roads are two going both directions with a middle lane for turning, or if they're double roads. But if that analysis was done prior to folks wanting to have this 144 apartment complex done along with the retail, then that's already old news. I mean, that's already outdated. I did see on Waverly today that there were some more lines down, I'm assuming to test traffic needs, but is that too late? Lastly, but certainly not least, my biggest concern is the overcrowding of the schools. So I have a child both in Madison Elementary and Pioneer Ridge, and they're both busting at the seams. I had emailed the superintendent of schools, but I have yet to hear back from her. This was well over 2 weeks ago. I don't know if the schools are not concerned. Maybe they know something that we don't. But in either case, I find it very concerning that they have not chimed in on this development, as it would have a huge impact on the boundaries of the schools or the need to develop new schools and expand the high school once again. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Homburg with NSPJ Architects, 3515 West 75th Street in Prairie Village, Kansas. We're a 58-year-old multifamily residential architecture firm here in Kansas City. To date, we've designed, have constructed, and have successfully developed in partnerships with people like Philip over 50,000 units of multifamily and multi-unit housing. So we bring a certain degree of expertise in knowing what's the right fit for a right location. I was going to try to come up here before everybody kind of give the architecture speak, but you know, I walked too slow and Christy kind of beat me to the podium. So what I'd like to do is kind of talk a little bit about the architectural part of it here, just to kind of help educate about the level and the quality we're talking about here and how it is going to be a good neighbor to the community at large. Obviously, I think, how do I control this thing? Or do you kind of hit the buttons?
I'm not sure if there's a
Is that here?
See if that works.
Cross your fingers.
Right and left.
There we go. Obviously, as staff has done already, they did a great job kind of explaining the high-level premise of the project. Starting with the arrangement of the buildings, starting with the retail buildings on the left-hand side. We configured them to selectively hide large parking fields from view from the streets. We internalized a lot of parking, and we also brought certain buildings up to the street. That's an important component to the overall development, because then that frontage of the buildings up to the streets kind of follows through onto the multifamily side. And so we want to feel that the buildings in the develop kind of, you know, front the street, embrace the street. It actually brings a nicer sense of development and community when buildings kind of come up to the street. It's a very common new urbanism type concept that's been done for a very long time. Kind of getting into the weeds a little bit on the the proposed development. You can kind of see like a high-level concept here of the apartment buildings. Again, like the planning staff explained, they're going to be secure entrance, what we call manor home type multifamily units. And so that means that the ground level doors will be secured, and then they'll actually have open stairways above the first floor to allow that to be a breezeway. The materials are all going to be very high quality materials. It's going to be a mixture of stucco, of cultured stone and cultured brick, then with asphalt shingle roof. And obviously the owner is very interested and loves to have lush landscaping. So obviously when we hopefully get to the point of a final development plan, you're going to see a very nicely appointed landscape plan along with this. And with this particular view that you see, you kind of see how the embracing of the buildings and the clubhouse and then the angled parking really creates a nice neighborhood feel to this street. And we feel that this is going to, when you put parking on the street, it slows traffic down. Just because it's just a juxtaposition of cars along a street, you naturally will not go through in a high rate of speed. And so we feel that that's also going to bring that pedestrian access and that activity of the people kind of traversing through the lot. Concurrently to one of the things that one of the other people mentioned was kind of the traversing of people. We're obviously embracing that people outside our development will cross through the multifamily to get to the retail sections, to go have a sandwich during lunch hour, or go to a bar and grill for dinner, or go to, you know, any number of things that the developer is considering for this development. So we really want the neighborhood to know that we're going to be a good neighbor, in the fact that that's why you see the extensive sidewalks going through the multifamily section, is that we want to encourage that cross migration of people. Kind of concerning some of the things that were brought up by the other neighbors. One is concern about the schools. The project is contemplated as only having 1 and 2 bedroom apartment units. There will be no 3-bedroom apartment units. Historically, people with children do not live in 1 or 2 bedroom apartment units. What this is targeted for.
That's a joke.
Can I just finish speaking, please? So what we want to do is, we've got historic data that speaks to the fact that the target market for this is the young professional, the young, workforce housing type person that wants to live in and near the Gardner area. And that's what this project is very much focused on. Like Mr. DeVilbiss talked about, the level of quality and finishes in this project are going to be very nice high-end products. This is just a little look standing in the green area, the homeowners association green area, looking back towards the one-story clubhouse, you can see the flanking two-story townhomes on our other side of it. So you can kind of visualize that there is a nice visual adequate distance between the two properties, and it's not necessarily shoehorned in as you think. Again, another high-level view of the development. One of the important things, again, with traffic, and I think we've got a slide later on that talks about this, is that you can see at the middle of the page, there's a north-south main spine that goes up between the multifamily units and the retail units. That is the main thoroughfare that people will come in and out. It's going to place people onto Santa Fe and onto Washington. It's not going to place people onto any of the other more local neighborhood streets. Obviously, Judd, we talked about the previously approved plan. This is the parking data that was provided by Phelps Engineering for the project, and it basically speaks to the previous approved site plan is the bank of information on the left, and then obviously the proposed site plan is the information on the right. With the previous approved plan, you basically had, like I said, nearly 120,000 square feet of retail uses that generated weekday total trips of over 9,700 cars. AM peak in and out and PM peak in and out, the 276 and the 871. You kind of step over to the proposed site. Obviously, the big driver you can see by the numbers is the retail, and that's historically so. Retail people come in larger banks and groups at certain times of the day. One of the things with multifamily uses and the evolution of the users is that parking is much more dispersed. People work from home more. They've got flex hours. Maybe they don't go to work that day. They work an evening or night shift. So the number of people in a commercial and or office aspect when everyone has to be in at 8 o'clock, or people go there for dinner at 5 o'clock, those kind of bunchings of people are not seen in a multifamily capacity. People come and go at a more general nature during the course of the day, depending on what their job demands are, or if they're working that day or not. So, and we found that that's very true. But just at a high level, the total weekday trips are 5,800 less. The AM peak is 166 less, and the PM peak is 542 less than the previous approved plan. I think I'd also like to talk a little bit about the users. We're gearing this with the level and quality of the project to be, like everyone's talked about here, is a market race, nice Class A type apartment. The rents are going to be such that it's going to attract people that are just like us. It's the term that you hear a lot is renter by choice, and it's a philosophy that someone wants to rent. They like the flexibility of being a renter at those certain stages in their lives. The renter demographic, renter by choice, obviously is the inflow of people in the young generation coming out of college, the first several years out of college, but then also we see a great deal of the renter by choice being the people that are empty nesters, or wanting to downsize from a larger home, have a maintenance provided community, be able to lock and leave and have somebody else mow the yard, mow the grass and clean the gutters out, clean the leaves out of the gutters and stuff like that. Those are the renter by choice people, and those are people that work good paying jobs. They obviously want to come into the community and be part of the community because they want to be here. That's what housing does, especially rental housing. When you think about rental housing, people come into a community. They want to live in that community. They want to go in that specific spot for a certain reason. A lot of it's job related because they want to be closer to where they work, and they like the other amenities that are around that neighborhood. Once they stay there for a number of years, they want to go to the next stage where maybe they get married, maybe they have a small child. They want to take that next step. What do? They want to stay in the community. They're actually wanting to take that step and go find a place to live. So they're starting to trowel the neighborhoods around to see if a for sale sign is nearby. The multifamily housing is an incubator to single family home sales because the people get attached to that community, they love the surroundings, they want to stay there and be then further parts of the community. The transient nature that people talk about, we do not see that because in Kansas City, it's getting to be a little bit harder to get from point A to point B. People are starting to move in closer to where they work. So these are things that by giving these opportunities to get people initially into the community in a for rent status allows them to stay in the community to then be a future homeowner. In regards to just a couple of high things on the clubhouse, I just want to talk about, there's obviously going to be noise ordinances that are city statutes. There's obviously going to be times when, the clubhouse is not going to be this 24-hour day, 7-day-a-week type thing. The owner is very cognizant of, being a good neighbor. So the clubhouse and pool will close down at a very amicable time. It will not, it won't be, obviously if people are being disruptive, there is going to be on-site management that will be in control of that. So if there's an issue, I believe that all the neighbors will have that person's phone number and they'll call up and say, hey, I got a problem. And this developer's been successful with taking care of the problems when they occur. That's why he's been able to have developments that have stayed open as long as they have and been as successful as they have. And just, I think that's kind of at a high level, and so I just would welcome any additional questions that you might have of myself.
Thank you.
What will the rental rates be roughly?
Probably at a high level, 1-bedrooms will go probably somewhere around, 8, but anywhere from a small 1-bedroom, $750 a month, up to a large bedroom, probably $1,000. That's what the market is. Just a step above the market in this area right now.
And if right, and that's where I was headed next.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jessica Strom, and I'm a resident at 720 West Shawnee Court. A lot of people have thrown around a lot of statistics tonight, and what I would like to do is come to you as a voice of reason. Our community isn't proposed to really nice apartments. We all believe that Gardner needs to grow and thrive. We all come with the same heart. We love our city, and we want to have sustainability where people can come and live here, their lives here, whether it be renting, whether it be homeowning. The problem that we're facing, that we're opposing tonight, is not how pretty these apartments are going to be or how the vegetation is going to maybe try to offset the noise. What we're coming at is that we would like to see some sort of compromise between the builder and all of us who are voicing our concerns. The pie shape where the clubhouse and the pool is was only bought not 2 months ago, right at the end of December. It was a total afterthought to this entire development. Because that shape was an RP3 designated for a townhome that the original builder couldn't afford to do for whatever reason, he sold the land. Now the developer has decided, hey, I want apartments there, let's rezone it because there's a standard RP3 right next to it. We would like to propose that he can build his apartments, he can build his clubhouse, but the pool where it is stated to go is not acceptable to be where it is for the townhomes. 33 homes to absorb that type of responsibility and burden on our peace and quiet, our right to peace and quiet. The builder seems to think that our main concern is green space. It is not. Our main concern is quality of life and peace and quiet. That pool, there's no reason why the architect cannot move pieces around to move the pool within the apartments so that way they can enjoy their pool close to their homes. If those renters end up not liking the noise and not liking the burden, they have the option to move. They have the option to decide, hey, I don't want to live in this particular place. We as homeowners do not. We have invested our life savings into these homes, and if we were to sell our homes with a pool to apartments, to 144 apartments, we have no statistics to say that our property value will decline, but I can assure you that the ability to resell our property will absolutely decline. Our homes will stay on the market longer. We would have to take a loss on our homes just to be able to sell them. Renters, they can come and go as they want, but we're here because we want to invest in Gardner and we want to see it grow. So we say, put up a clubhouse there, put an apartment building there, just move some puzzle pieces around to take the burden of the pool off of these homeowners that are already there. My husband already stated that we have $7 million worth of investments around that pool. We all are a harmonious community, and we wish to continue it to be a harmonious community, but we would like to be considered as a realistic consideration for this project. The fact that the original plan showed the larger pool, and then he decided to redo it and resubmit a new pool that also faces our homes even more. To us, we feel like it's a slap in the face because he's not listening to us. It's not about green space, it is about the pool. We firmly believe that if they were to move some pieces around in the RB3 suggested rezoning across the street from Laurel, there is absolutely room for that pool to be over there. We're not opposed to even an apartment being there. Perhaps the builder can look at the original plans for the community and build a townhome in the similar style of his apartments. Offer something different for his renters to give an option. Do you want an apartment or do you want a townhome? Something that's more harmonious in the original development of our community. It's not fair to ask the townhome owners to absorb this burden. And I just plead with you to use reason and use heart and know that we come at it not with an objection to the entire project, but just to move this pool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Melissa Hershey and I live at 301 North Pear Street. I feel I have a unique perspective because I'm one of the single-family homeowners who lives right next to the pool in our neighborhood. I love it. It's noisy. There is a lot going on. I will tell you that I don't have specific data, but when I was purchasing my lot and my home, I was cautioned by my real estate agent that I may run into troubles because my home is directly located by a pool. This pie-shaped wedge makes a lot of people have to find specific buyers that are comfortable living right next to a pool. Again, I have 2 boys. I'm an ICU nurse. I love chaos and noise. That's fine for me. But it is more of a specific buyer that you're looking for when you go to sell. So these homes will be affected. I also wanted to speak on during the proposal the parts about the sidewalk. I know the staff did recommend that the wider sidewalks should be wider. They shouldn't be narrowed. I agree with that. People, when they're moving their stuff, and again, those of us with strollers or wheelchairs, the wider sidewalks are definitely what is appropriate. So that was just my piece. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Mary Pribble, and my address is 132 North Pear Street. I am one of the townhomes affected and will be overlooking the proposed pool. A couple things that the developer has failed to mention. In our opinion, they might build beautiful residential commercial properties, but I believe this is the first apartment complex that they are taking on. It was mentioned in the February 13th meeting that they are going to build this property and turn it over to a management company, which will not be on site 24/7. I believe that management company will only be on the property during the regular clubhouse hours. So we will be left to defend for ourselves during those pool hours after 5 o'clock during the week, as well as, you know, weekend hours that the clubhouse is not open. A couple other things that the developer failed to mention is the plot of land that the clubhouse and the pool are going to be going on was just purchased from Ken Rogler back on December 28th. So they are misinforming the public that they've owned that piece of land all along, and it's always been part of their development plan, which has not been the case. I was instrumental at the beginning of the year renegotiating our mowing contract for the reserve at Waverly Point on behalf of the HOA, and we specifically talked to Mr. Rogler about that green space and how it needed to be included in that mowing contract that the HOA has paid for. So we have spent thousands of dollars to maintain that land with the assumption that it was HOA property. It wasn't until that sign was put up saying that they requested the rezoning that we first got glimpse of what the proposed development was going to be and that Mr. Rogler had officially sold that land. We saw no for sale signs up. We saw no notification in the paper that this land was for sale. So I don't think Mr. Rogler approached anybody regarding the sale except for this particular developer. It was not public knowledge that this land was for sale. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't plan to say anything tonight. My name's Jennifer Wilson. I just moved into 212 North Pear Street. I've spent a career in human resources management. I've started in '93. That's a little while ago. And I just wanted to point out to the council that even though this developer who resides in Prairie Village, I believe, and the landowner may have spent a few years outside of the minimum wage range, I can tell you that if this living area is going to be inhabited by people that work in the intermodal area, I can tell you that those folks are not going to be making the same kind of money that you make when you live in Prairie Village. They're going to be making $10 an hour. I have hired tellers making $10 an hour, and they would put 5 people into a 2-bedroom house. Kids, you know, I'm just saying that it may be presented to you that there are going to be no children in these units, but I can almost guarantee that with the type of income that these folks are going to be making if they're coming to work for the intermodal, it might be something to think about.
Thank you.
My name is Jessica Bridges, and I live at 314 North Laurel. And I want to agree, I was a young parent that lived in an apartment that did have a child. And so I think we're operating on assumptions that a certain population is going to move into these apartments. But what I would like to bring up is that you keep hearing that school is overcrowded, but it's a safety concern. My son suffered a severe concussion at school, and nobody knew what happened because we don't have enough staff in the schools, and we have way too many kids crammed in that building. And so to add more kids on top of that is just putting my child, both of them, in an unsafe situation, as well as any further children in that school.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kevin Berriger. I live on 559 West Santa Fe. Basically, if you don't stop at the stop sign at Laurel, the proposed street, you'd run directly into my driveway. Just the thing I hear, I'm here dirty from work, I wasn't gonna speak or nothing. The thing I could hear when we even was running through the whole proposal, they want the narrowest sidewalks because it's cheaper. They can talk about stucco, they can talk about all these things and propose stuff they wanna do and how nice it is, but to hear the way that we recommend they have wider sidewalks, well, that is a good recommendation, but that's my point to you guys. You have to look at this and some of these recommendations, if they just try to cram this all in, like the overhang of the sidewalks, this is something I deal with every day. It's the same thing. They need bigger sidewalks. The reason they don't, it's cheaper. The reason they want the parking to all count in this street is because they don't want to provide the parking inside the apartment area. So they need it on the public street. They need all that parking to count too. Otherwise, they don't have enough. It's the same when you guys show the bicycle thing. There's supposed to be 140, you know, whatever, however many units it is, supposed to be 1 per. They only want to have 30 and then 50 for 80. That's because it's about half the number. They don't want to provide all that. And it's just something to consider that this is going to be affecting a ton of people. To be honest, the clubhouse, I mean, for me, on a very personal level, of course, you know, the clubhouse don't bother me, but you can see what it's doing to these people in these community. I don't care if the clubhouse is going there. This is a community of people that care about what's going on, and I just don't feel that anything that's going on in here, besides the businesses, which no one seems to have had a problem with until this rezoning part. And you guys definitely need to consider just what it's doing to people. And like I said, if they can somehow cram it all in, that's fine. But you got to look at the 6-foot, the 8-foot sidewalks, the stuff like that. They're pretending it's about green space. It's not about green space. It's cheaper. They want the clubhouse somewhere else because they don't want the clubhouse involved in that area. The reason they want the parking, same thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak this evening? none. To entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion by Commissioner McNair with a second by Commissioner Brady to close the public hearing. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Planning Commission discussion time. We've heard a lot of good feedback from the applicant and the public this evening. I truly appreciate everyone coming out and voicing your issues. So I'll start on my right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple. I just made some notes as I was listening to all the comments. Thank you for everybody coming tonight. We appreciate the input. One of the things that I wanted to find out is why are we needing a three-story buildings and the density that comes with, and is there any concerns with the airport being right catty corner to this property?
Yes, sir.
The height of the facilities are dictated somewhat by our land code, so the height is allowable in this zoning area. As far as the airport review is concerned, it's outside the area of the influence of the airport runway zone, so that is not affected.
Okay. And next question I had was just listen to why do we need such high density? Is that a reason for economics or?
I think what you see is that the density on the site, actually with all the green space, is probably not any different than what you would see for a two-story apartment complex that has building, parking lot, building, parking lot, building, parking lot. We tend to bring buildings up to an additional story to decrease the number of footprints on the site to allow for more green space, and that's actually that livability part of it. And it's if you've got one roof and you got one foundation, if you got two floors in it versus three, obviously it makes the economics work, which actually lends itself to a better rent.
That wasn't really where I was going. I do agree with the footprint and the economics. I was asking why do we need 144 units in such a small space? That's why. That's why my question is the density is why so many.
It's probably in retrospect to all garden apartment communities, which that's what this is pretty much spot on to that. It's not any more dense than you'd see in a garden apartment community. 144 units. There's a certain mass, there's a certain size of development that you need to have, a certain number of units to make it economically feasible.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get the concrete guy on site. You got to get the roofer on site, and to get best pricing, you're in, even at 144, it's probably low. Most of our developments, it gets closer to 250 to get economically viable.
Well, you've done a lot of work on this this plat, and it looks like you've had some extensive planning with and some considerable amount of time, probably a year or more in the making. Is that correct?
There's been multiple iterations of this plan over that year. Yes.
Okay, and just curious, prior to December of last year, where or if had you had plans for a clubhouse and pool, and if so, where had it been located?
Right. Judd, do you want to?
No, there wasn't. I planned to put a grocery store there. And I went to Robler and asked him what he was going to do about the road. And he said that he wasn't going to be able to put the road in because the school took his profit in eminent domain when they took the two big chunks of his apartments. The apartments became viable because that piece was available. I had another, as I said when I was up here before, 64 apartments designed in there. And we took those out so it would be more livable. I could go ahead and put them back in. I just have,
Sir, I'm not trying to argue with, I'm just asking questions.
No, and I'm just trying to explain.
I guess what I was really wanting to understand was, it looks like this plan has been worked on for quite some time, and you put a lot of work into it, and I applaud you for that, in trying to be as considerate as you can to the community. I guess my question is, prior to December, was there, prior to the purchase of Tract A, was there plans in this, in the apartment side of this, to have had a pool and clubhouse without that land being available?
There was never a plan written at all that had the clubhouse. And it's not like a game room. It's offices. It's rental. The answer is no, there was not.
Okay. Have we had traffic studies done?
Yes, sir. There was a traffic study done by the city on the construction for the two roadways prior to the development of this project. And after our traffic studies were done, this project was required to perform another traffic study to layer on top of that one. And both of those were compiled and studied by HDR, which is the city's traffic consultant.
Okay.
And consolidated into one unit so that the traffic would be consistently taken care of as a whole.
I own 15 acres, and I pay taxes on 15 acres from the get-go. But we're only able to use 13.2 because the rest went to streets and to right-of-way.
How many parking, I'm a little confused here, how many parking spots per apartment unit do we have here?
Let me ask Judd Clausen with the engineering company, because he can tell you exactly.
Thank you.
My name is Judd Clausen with Phelps Engineering, address is 1270 North Winchester, Olathe, Kansas. My 144 units, the parking, great, thank you, Michelle, for pulling that up on. There's 241 provided parking spaces on the plan, and that's on the site plan there. You can see the data table. Lot 4 apartments, 144 units, right in the center of the screen, 241 at 1.67 per unit. The required amount by the city ordinance is 216, 1.5 per unit. The 241 is comprised of, in the little table to the right of that, apartment parking detail. There's the 50 garage spaces. The on-site surface is 136, and there's street parking of 55 spaces for the total of 241.
Just out of curiosity, just the way people live, the price point of these apartments, would it be reasonable to assume that most people that are going to occupy this will have 2 cars? Most, you know.
And that's, and that's kind of baked into these numbers with the 1.5.
Well, 2 cars is 2 cars, not 1.69 cars.
And I get that, but when you look at the overall aggregate of the whole complex, some people have 1. So when you start looking at averaging things, and that's where the city's code comes into play, and this is right in line with what we see in other cities such as Overland Park, Leawood, Olathe, where we've done other apartment projects. You provide in that 1.6, 1.7 per unit ratio, and typically the city's requirements are in that 1.5 or so. So Gardner is right in line with this for these apartments.
Well, and then it goes over to the bicycle parking as well. We had a requirement of 144. Is that what the codes require?
Yes, they require
Okay.
1 per unit.
Okay, so why would we hold Price Chopper to that standard and then issue consideration of a pass on this?
You're comparing a commercial development to the residential portion of the development. I'm not familiar with what was done with the price.
I'm going to pass over to Commissioner Brady. I'll come back later if I have further questions. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the help.
Got numerous comments before questions. I want to thank our staff for holding the neighborhood meeting and having that dialogue. I think that's important. I want to thank this group for being here. And I love how you pooled together. That's what we do in Gardner. I also appreciate the civility and the professionalism that's been demonstrated, and we've got to continue that throughout this process. Tonight, city council meeting or other meetings that may happen because of what happens today. Thank you for being engaged tonight. We need that in our city. I know of at least one position that's going to be open on this council in a few months. We heard 10 people speak tonight. All 10 of you could take one of these seats. I mean that in all seriousness. Be on the city council or on this commission, the planning commission. Take it up another level with your civic engagement. I invite you to do that. I'm hearing these concerns. Traffic flow, including the parking. Proximity, location of the pool and the clubhouse. Negative impact on property value. 3-story apartments. Noise. Will the units even be filled? Noise, bright lights, and really, for some of you, just not really even having an apartment complex there, and just the dislike for rental properties near your homes. There might be others, but those are the ones I kind of got from your emails and what you shared this evening. The flip side, I heard some positives. There are road improvements. There are recreational trails. The owner has, or the developer has, adjusted the site plan. These are secured luxury apartments, sidewalk upgrades, traffic studies. Those are some positive things that have taken place. Those are my comments. Here come the questions. And if I miss this, I apologize. From this development, the residential piece, is there a direct access with sidewalks to the high school and to Madison Elementary?
There is sidewalks along Washington Street, and then there will be a 10-foot trail along Waverly Road.
And this is not a roundabout. This is, because my question was a direct route, and this is too small for me to see on the screen. So is there going to be a direct route?
If your question, sir, is will there be a route along 174th of Washington directly north to the school property and across that property to the high school, the answer is no, because the school does not desire one.
Okay. Question for the developer, and if it's true that this would be turned over to a management company, will the pool have regulated pool hours?
Pardon me?
Will the pool area, clubhouse area, have regulated regular pool hours?
Yes, sir.
And what would those be?
Well, we don't know. We'll work on it, but 9 or 10 o'clock at the latest on the weekend and earlier during the week.
And to those who live at Waverly Point and Reserve, you have a pool, correct? What are your hours?
There are weekdays, they are 10 to 9, and on the weekends, we allow it to be open until 10 o'clock.
Okay, so similar then. Okay, that helps. Mr. Strom, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. You mentioned something about busing kids to Edgerton Elementary School. What's that based on? Is that something the school district told you?
Sure.
Because of the overcrowdedness that is being projected at Madison?
These are some of the concerns that were projected towards me for some of the individuals that I was representing that have children that go to Madison. From my understanding, my kids are not old enough to go to Madison. Some of the concerns is due to the overpopulation and the amount of kids going to that school. Those lines have been swayed where kids are now having to be bused to Edgerton to reduce the population in Madison. That way they have enough space for the kids that they have now.
So there are kids in your housing area that are being bused to Edgerton right now?
I don't know if it's necessarily within our housing area, but if the population of kids that are going to be going to Madison based off of the lines that they're drawing now, putting that 144 unit home is going to allow more kids in that line to go to Madison. The concerns that I have been hearing from some of the other other individuals is that going to change the lines, which is going to make more kids have to be bused out to Edgerton to accommodate the kids that are now going to be in those 144.
And I'm not trying to be confrontational, but that's speculation. And kids getting bused to Edgerton.
Please.
My kids go to Madison Elementary. Right now, we are over capacity at Madison. I'm also on the PTA there as well. So we are over capacity already. And last year, there was boundary changes proposed, and west of Waverly Road, those kids would have been bused to Edgerton in the new proposals. There was 2 separate proposals that were being talked about, and both of them had neighborhoods, specifically St. John's. Both of the St. John's neighborhoods would be bused out to Edgerton, and they were extremely upset. Our neighborhood, I don't believe, would be affected, at least according to the proposals last year. What I had mentioned in my speech is that it's not only going to affect our neighborhood, but the rental apartment complex would in turn affect other neighborhoods as well, because they would be pushed out.
Just kind of FYI, the school district does own property directly south of Pioneer Ridge Middle School, which is slotted for an elementary school. So I honestly, as a person that worked in the district for 32 years, I can't speak on behalf of the Board of Education, but I don't think they plan on busing kids to Edgerton Elementary School.
According to the boundary change, I went to the boundary change meetings last year. I went to several of those, and that land is not big enough for an elementary school, is what they had told us there. That land south of Pioneer Ridge is not able to facilitate an elementary school, and that they were thinking due to the studies that they had done, that they technically need to move an elementary school to right over by where the new police station would be in order for density reasons.
I had not heard that. That surprises me that our board would purchase that land that was too small.
Yeah, they
just
said
seems a little
odd. They had mentioned that apparently they didn't plan that the school, that Pioneer Ridge was as big as it is. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
The biggest thing I've heard all night is location of the pool and clubhouse. I mean, that came through loud and clear. And suggestions about moving the puzzle pieces around. And I'm not a developer. I'm not an architect. Could the clubhouse pool be flip-flopped so the pool is on the drive side? Don't that help or not? Or putting the pool and clubhouse in the center of the complex and free up that other pie piece for, and I'm hearing from the constituents that you'd be okay with additional apartments there. Once again, don't know if it'll fit, but was that discussed at any point?
I thought that when I offered to cut, piece off and make the walkway and everything that goes to that piece, and you saw it shows there's plenty of room. It's way more than just sitting here talking about. But there is a gigantic drain back there that everything drains to. I mean, what is it, 6 by 6? 6 by 6. And it sits up about this high, and all the water, even off of Laurel, the frontage, and the townhouses along Laurel and the back where these people live, it all goes there. And so you have to, no, you couldn't. And they wouldn't want a 3-story apartment in their backyard. The pool is not going to be used that much. People don't swim that much. They suntan and get in there to cool off and get wet. But no, I don't think that's possible.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just final comments as I kind of wrap up my part. Our job as a planning commission is to determine if codes are being met and whether or not this project is congruent with the city's comprehensive plan. That's our job. City Council's got the tougher job. If this goes forward, they've got to make the final decision. And so anyway, I guess if this does pass, you have another opportunity for a voice. The City Council does not always support our recommendations. They are not a rubber stamp organization. So I applaud them for that. With that, I'll turn it over.
Okay. Yes, I echo what the previous commissioner said. I think it's great that there's so much audience participation from the neighborhood. This is how it should be. We should be able to hear from everybody. You should come and voice your opinion. I appreciate that. I also appreciate that the developer has tried to work with the homeowners by cutting off that corner and giving some walkway space. It's unfortunate that the land in between the townhomes is now owned by a different person than what the homeowners originally planned for. But, you know, the developer bought it. I feel like it's their land. Within reason, they should be able to put what they can on it. I don't really have any questions. I do like that there's all the walkways and it's a more pedestrian development. I guess that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gardner.
So I wanted to thank everyone for coming out tonight and, you know, presenting. I can shed some unique perspective on this development because I lived in a development just like this. I lived in Hunters Ridge, which was, I believe, one of the first luxury apartments that came to Lawrence, Kansas, and I commuted from there to Topeka because no one wants to live in Topeka. I lived in the third floor apartment right above the pool house. And I wanted that house, I wanted that apartment because I thought it would, you know, be fun and everything else. It really wasn't. No one ever went to the pool. It wasn't as crowded as I thought it would be, if that makes any sense. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because within probably 60 feet of our pool house, a development went in right across. And they were building $400,000 houses after Hunters Ridge was built. So when someone says that their property values are going to decrease because of an apartment complex like this, I have to give a little pushback. I don't believe that to be true. It maybe, possibly, in some instances, but I don't think that is the case. Just a second. As far as, there were some stats brought up, and I like stats, I like numbers. Excuse me, I had a throat problem earlier. Rental occupied, or occupancy, for Lenexa and Gardner has risen disproportionately. So you brought up the fact that Gardner has grown at 6%, as opposed to, say, Lenexa, which has grown at 2.2%, or Johnson County as a whole. And I think that's because Gardner grew later than the rest of Johnson County. We're experiencing a boom at the time that multifamily is sort of the housing choice of the young millennials and the retirees. And so the reason that Gardner is experiencing a boom in apartment complex building is because we're experiencing our growth at the time this is the popular build. So I say all that with, a heavy heart. I understand that this is emotional. I understand that it appears that an apartment complex like this would lower your values. But I assure you that from what I have seen and witnessed, that's not going to happen. I can't guarantee that. There's no guarantees in life. But from what I've experienced and seen, that's not going to happen. So with that, I pass it along.
I do have a couple of questions, and first I want to reiterate thank you to everybody that participated this evening. I have a question on the tract that the developer said behind the pool that they have deeded. They're going to deed over to the HOA. Is that correct? Just want to make sure I heard correctly. You said that you took a piece out of your behind the pool to allow for more space for
and the side.
Yes.
We're going to make the folks built. I mean, almost anyway. They built their patio fence right on the property line or right thereabouts. So when they walk out, if I had a fence, then it is dead space for them, that they can't get out of their backyard, so to speak. So I propose to give them enough grass in those 5 units, it's 4 or 5 units, and then give them the whole back corner, and they can go to that gigantic piece that they have. Or they can go ahead and accept us to use there's when you're gonna have a party. I mean, if you got a great big piece of grass back there, but I would do that. In other words, they have the rights to go in the back of ours, back of the pool, and I have the right to use theirs at my discretion. But that's not gonna work for the city. And so I'll put a fence up, a very attractive fence. They put up a barricade, stockade fence. My fence will be nice, and it'll be all beautifully landscaped, I promise you. Don't believe what I say. Go look at my shopping center down here where Austin's and everything is. It's gorgeous. Trees. It's clean. My sons manage it, and my sons take care of it, maintenance. One of the family is on the property in Gardner every day.
Okay, my question just is, you're gonna deed that to them? Are they going to be owning that? Who's gonna be maintaining that? Is the HOA going to continue to maintain that?
I talked to the city yesterday when I dreamt this up. I got the engineers to draw it to make sure it works.
Is that at a cost, or are you just giving it to them?
Well, Michelle, could you help me with that? I don't know what kind of cost it is.
I'm not sure that there would be a cost involved.
If there's a cost, I'll pay it.
It would just be if they were willing to accept it, they would deed the property over to the HOA, and then it would be theirs.
Okay. I was just trying to get some clarification on that point. Other than the bank, which is designated, I think, on one of the buildings, who else are you looking at for this retail? Do you have any prospective tenants?
We're trying hard to get a mainstream restaurant. We're talking to, I can't give you their names, but it's an Italian restaurant that's very good, been in business for over 40 years in one location. They have 2 locations, one in Mission and one in Kansas City, Kansas. We're talking to another group that has a sports bar like. We're talking to a restaurant that has everyday chicken fried steak, meatloaf, that kind of stuff. They have 7 restaurants, and it's well run.
So what's the mix? Is it a lot of restaurants, or is it?
Well, there's no restaurants there. From Gardner Road or Center.
Well, I know that, but what are you planning? Is it restaurants and small shops, boutique shops?
We'd like to have at least 2, maybe 3 restaurants, and then we're going to have the one building that's on on 175th Street, just next to the bank. It's a small building, but we're looking for a Jimmy John's, a Panda Express. You know the building next to Walmart, on the corner of Walmart on 7 Highway.
Yeah.
It sits right out there. There's a Panda Express on one side and a Jimmy John's and a hair deal there. We're looking to do 4 to 6 smaller places right there, but we're talking seriously with Jimmy John's, and they'll make a fortune delivering to intermodal.
Okay.
I should have that franchise.
Okay.
But anyway, that's what we're doing. Then there will be a liquor store. There'll be a liquor store. A liquor store and sports bar restaurants are the drivers that make the centers. We're talking to a small, out of Colorado, health food. They go to the schools and talk about menus and help the PTAs and all that.
Okay.
I'm not at liberty to tell you who it is.
Okay.
But there's 11 of them in the Johnson County, South Wyandotte County area.
Okay. So my next question is, and this has already been asked, but I really didn't care for the answer, so I'm asking again. How much consideration was put into moving the pool?
None.
Okay.
Well, we own the ground, why would I move the pool?
Because you weren't thinking about us.
I think about you, that's why I'm building my center. You're gonna be going to that region.
Can you address me, please, sir, and be respectful of everybody? Thank you. Can you address me and be respectful of everybody? Thank you.
I'm trying to be respectful to them.
Thank you. But I guess, to me, that you saying none, when it was asked before, if it was considered, there was a reason, wherever drainage, I don't know how much effort was put into trying to relocate the pool, just because you have so many people that have concern about it. And I feel like maybe there should be more. I don't own the development. I'm not putting any money in it, but if there's so many people that have concerns, at least show, hey, we tried to put it in the middle, it didn't work for this reason. We tried to put it on the side, it didn't work for this reason. I don't know that conversation happened.
For a minute, just to answer that question.
Sure.
We gave the plan to the city before we knew there was a problem. I've had weeks of stakes, 2x4 stuck in the ground with strings going there, and I've had people ask me what I was doing, and I told them what I was doing, and I never had any knowledge that there was going to be a problem. We couldn't decide to change the pool when we didn't know there was any kind of a problem. I didn't know there was a problem until the city told me. And then what I'm trying to do is give them away. It says save my backyard. I'm trying to give them away free at my cost. I'll do it and give them a spot. I'm even going to build a wall to make a bank so they can go ahead and use more of it.
Okay.
I'm not asking anybody to help me or to pay anything, but to say that I should have done this and I should have done that, in all respect to you, I had no idea. We give a plan. I've got the best engineers, and the city knows it. You use them. Everybody does. And the best architects in town, in single family and apartments all over the greater Midwest and maybe the whole country. And they laid it out for me. Now I know there's a problem. And now I have tried, I mean, in 24 hours from knowing, I offered to do this, make them a path so they can walk out of their backyard and go to this.
Okay. I find it hard to believe that you just found out there was a problem, but I'm done. I will turn over.
Well, you're calling me a liar, and I'm sorry about that.
Okay. First of all, like Commissioner Brady said, everyone that was sitting down, including those that are the developers, were quiet while everybody else was up there talking about what they're doing wrong. And I do think that it is that everyone out there should also be cognizant of that, and also keep your comments to yourself while someone's up there. Okay. I don't have any questions. I do have some comments. You know, I emphasize, I'm glad that you all came out. Just like what's been said, this is the second. I've been on the Planning Commission for 1 year, and this is the second large gathering that had to do with the zoning request. We had one just a couple months ago. On that one, it was a huge project, which we denied. Okay. I won't go over the reasons. You can go back and watch the Planning Commission meeting if you'd like. So when I hear comments of it's a rubber stamp, we've already made up our mind, I would like you to go back and take a look at that and see that that's not the case. I'd also, the first I found out about this was watching the City Council meeting. The first time I saw any plans or anything about this was Thursday. So same time it was put out to the public. So there was no preconceived notions or rubber stamps by this commission. I do emphasize, I mean, I I moved into a development in 1998 here in Gardner. That's when I moved to Gardner. And I moved into a housing development. I moved into a certain portion of that housing development because I had a nice tree line, right? One of the negatives to the piece of property I had to buy was there's a big, huge electrical pole right in the middle of my backyard. I basically, in essence, did not have a usable backyard because of this electrical pole with main power lines going through it, feeding a large area Gardner, all right? That developer told me that that was going to be buried within 2 years. That developer also said that my property went to the tree line. So over the next 5, 6 years, we cleaned up that tree line because the other side of the tree line was a agriculture. It was a farmer who was farming it. We put landscaping. We did a lot of nice stuff along there to make it look nice. Fast forward 5 or 6 years, we still don't have a buried electrical line. And by the way, instead of 2 years, it took 19 years before that happened. A developer bought the farmer's land, and we found out that that property line went into what we thought was our own property, a decent distance. All right, and then they cleared out not all the trees, but a decent portion of those trees. All right, I was upset. My wife cried. My neighbor's wife cried. Same reactions that everyone here is having, right? But in reality, that was the developer's issue because, well, in my opinion, he lied to me. And that was our issue because we didn't check on the developer, okay? That had nothing to do with city staff. That had nothing to do with the planning commission at the time. It had nothing to do with the city council at the time. That was just the way it was. Fast forward to what is going on with you guys. You had a developer who told you one thing. I don't think that he lied to you, but he changed his mind, right? And you guys, in essence, are paying the price for it, right? So, you know, I apologize for that. I completely understand. But I think a lot of you don't understand the scope of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has a very limited scope. Commissioner Brady basically stated at the end, our job is to look at zoning, look at the zoning around, see if it's appropriate, and then we make a zoning change, we look at the site plans, make sure that they meet the code for that level of zoning. We do not have the option to choose what goes in there as long as it meets the zone. So, you know, if we vote to change the zone, he can build as the developer anything he wants in there as long as it meets the criteria of that zone, and he can build anything in there as long as it meets the land development code. The other thing we listen to is deviations, because we have a certain amount of deviation that we can accept to the actual code. And you heard some of those deviations here tonight, right? So that's all we can do. The RP3 that this is the same zone that your townhomes are on. And so I didn't look at the Planning Commission back when yours was zoned, but I would guess from attending these meetings for a year that some of those in the R1, the single family, probably had issues with your townhomes going in, to be quite honest, because when we have multifamily, we usually have someone that has an issue with it, especially if they're by an R1. You know, we've had questions about the pool from the Planning Commission and so forth, but this is his property. That is already RP3. If he puts a pool there and a pool is allowed within that zone, and he meets the land development code, this Planning Commission technically doesn't have the ability to say, move the pool, right? You can go to the City Council, but we have a limited scope within the Planning Commission. And so I wanted to put that out there. As far as the school district part, that's not necessarily in our scope either. That could be the City Council. They have a committee that meets with the school district. The school district worries about the school borders and stuff like that. They do not bus to Edgerton, though that was one of the proposals for the district redraw. And so I can't say that that won't happen. It's a possibility. I know that district redraws are coming up again, so I'm not going to discount that, but they're not busing right now at Edgerton, and that would have to do with Edgerton's lack of or abundance of capacity is why that busing would happen, to utilize that school better, because Edgerton isn't growing fast enough to use that school's capacity. As far as the traffic study was basically talked about, it was seen for this, but again, traffic study, stuff like that, again, is not, that's the city that does that. The Planning Commission doesn't necessarily look at that aspect. And I believe that's all I had to say. Thank you.
I had a couple of more comments. First off, I did want to echo Commissioner Brady's words of thanking everyone to come out tonight. We really appreciate your input and the way that you have presented yourself. You're to be commended for that. My wife and I have been members of this community and been in the school district for just going on 20 years. And all of us, the vast majority of people live in this community, love this town, and love what's going on. And also, like to echo Commissioner Bowden's, we are very limited in our scope and what we can do. And while a lot of times we may want to agree with some of the things that have been said, you know, our scope and what we're allowed to do is very limited and very narrow. So I do have one more question for the developer. Have you had, how many commercial and high-density apartment complexes, how many high-density apartment complexes have you been involved with?
Been involved with a number of not as an
Okay, so this is your first one owning?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just looking at this map, I just kind of looking at this going, is there any way that you would consider just asking, moving the pool to the center of those the apartment buildings where it might be safer for the residents to not have to cross the street, and maybe even leaving the clubhouse where it is? Is that something you would consider doing?
If I didn't have to make a profit and pay back the loans, that could work. But I have a minimum right now as far as they call it scale.
Okay.
I need enough, and I'm not, no.
Well, I guess my question is, when I look at this drawing, this diagram, where it says the residents at Waverly Plaza, and that green area in the center of the apartment buildings, is that an area that you could consider putting the pool?
No, sir. I took a building, a 36-unit building, out of that right there.
Okay.
To do this, and
okay. Okay.
I didn't.
So that's what you're talking about as far as the scaling, then? Is
yes,
that correct? Okay, I understand.
I would like to say I appreciate the fact Gardner really doesn't have any luxury level type apartments. So it is kind of nice to see, at least if the builder's going to put something in this, that it's more along the luxury level. There's no garages elsewhere in Gardner for an apartment complex like this. I bought a truck a few years back from an owner. I went to look at the truck, and he was living in an apartment complex. He was about my age, 50. He was in an apartment complex very, very similar to this. He owned a development company, was well off. I asked him, why are you in an apartment complex? Because I had the thoughts about apartment complexes. I spent time in Lawrence, and there's some relatively ratty apartment complexes there. in spots because students can't afford much more than that. And he said, well, I just want maintenance free. I want a nice place and I want it to be maintenance free. So, you know, I'm not going to say that some of your concerns won't come true. It's always a possibility, but it's also a possibility that you'll have more than 5 people living in the apartment and so forth, because there's a reason that you see apartments, nice apartments like this going up all over Johnson County, because they are. The urban wave is real. It is how things are going. Millennials, I can't believe how many people I've talked to where their kids don't want to drive. The suburban sprawl that we've been used to in Johnson County is not as prevalent as it was, and you see a movement more towards urban. And that's all I have to say on this.
Excuse me. I just wanted to make one more statement about my experience living in an apartment complex like this. Most of us, I would say, well, I shouldn't say the majority of the people that worked while in the apartment complex wore a tie to work every day. That's the kind of people that buy these or rent these kind of apartments. I wore a suit and tie to work every day, and the other group was retirees who wanted no maintenance. So they were very well kept, and it's not your typical view of what a renter is. It's young professionals mixed with old retirees is by and large who pays a premium for these types of apartments. If they're trying to live within means, they typically don't live in an apartment complex this well designed. So.
Any other comments from the commission? Questions? The only one that I have is whether we need to, do we need to do anything to adjust our amendment to include tract A2, or is that?
What you'll have to do is in the motion, you'll just have to reference the new plan. So you could add you could just say dated today, because that's when we received it. Is that what you were asking?
Yes, so the preliminary development plan would be dated February 26th, not 14th.
Right.
Okay. I don't think I have any other questions or comments. I agree with a lot of what's been said today. As I expressed earlier, thank you all for being here and being heard. Having no other comments or questions, I would entertain a motion on this item.
I move that the Waverly Plaza proposal be tabled until the plan can be resubmitted by the developer that reflects a change of location of the pool and clubhouse.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Brady with a second by Commissioner McNear. Any questions from the Planning Commission? Seeing none, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Before you vote, I just want to make sure you all understand what tabling does. Tabling ensures that it's brought back at the very next meeting. Whereas if you move for an extension, then you could extend it out until a future date upon some other act occurring. Just so everybody's aware, there is a motion and a second on the floor, but I wanted everybody to be aware of.
Then I'll retract the motion and
Did you want to reconsider?
replace the word table with extension.
Well, there's 60 or 90 days?
Need to vote on that motion first.
You have to, yeah.
We need to vote on the original motion and second, and then if that fails, then we can make another motion and second. So all in favor of the motion on the floor, and please indicate by saying aye. All opposed? Aye.
I move that the Waverly Plaza proposal be extended until a new plan can be submitted by the developer that reflects a change of location of the pool and clubhouse.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Brady and a second by Commissioner McNear. Any additional commission discussion?
My reason for this is I'd like to give the developer an opportunity to respond based upon the comments you've heard here. You have made some allowances, and which has been appreciated by everybody around here. I'd like to see another proposal that offers a compromise.
I would, Commissioner Bray, I would agree with you. I think that, what I'm hearing tonight is a lot of frustration. And my concern is that prior to the 3rd or 4th week of December, I just have to believe that there have been alternative other plans, whether it was another building or whatever. And I'd just like to see maybe a couple of alternative or alternatives to what's in front of us at this point. And I would agree with your comments, sir.
I have a question of scope, I guess, for our legal team. Is this within our jurisdiction?
Well, you do have to take action up or down at some point in time. And
Right.
The stipulation that's attached to it, if it's not brought back, or if a new plan isn't submitted, if I understand the motion, the new plan isn't submitted with a revision showing an alternative location, then it wouldn't come back before this body. And you all do have to take action on the motion, or pardon me, on the application and send it up to the planning or to the governing body. What I typically see in these type of situations is that you'll continue it out to a date certain to allow for the parties to get together and to attempt to arrive at a compromise. So if you table the application until the next meeting, and if they can't come to a compromise or the developer isn't willing to compromise, you can come back and report that and you all take action as you see fit. But an indefinite extension, I'd have concerns about that due to the requirement when they submit an application for rezoning that you do have to take action.
So I want to make sure I understood the first part of that clearly. Are you saying then that if, as the motion was stated, if they don't change their plans, they can't bring it back forward?
Well, that's the way I understood the language of the motion. I put that back, but I believe that was the language of the motion.
Can you read that back, or?
Move to extend till the plan can be resubmitted to reflect a change in the location of the pool and clubhouse.
Okay, I just wanted to make that clear. So what we're voting on actually is, I don't think that was your intent, but what we're actually voting on is to force them to resubmit with a different plan.
No, I think
That
that
is-
was his intention.
Oh, okay, then I understood it correctly.
That is correct. And to reflect what our attorney said, I'd like to offer a friendly amendment to the proposal, to my motion, that this would be due, the revised proposal comes to us by the April Planning Commission meeting.
I second that.
So is,
Can you give me just a minute?
okay. And I do see your hand, but we have a motion and a second on the floor, so we can't take any other comments at this time.
What I'm looking at is the statutory time frame to take action. 15.03.010G4, the longest you can continue an application out to allow for further analysis is 60 days from the date of your original review without the consent of the applicant. So a continuance out beyond 60 days for an up or down vote couldn't be extended for that period of time.
But would the April meeting, would that be 60 days? You'd have March and April?
Yeah,
Okay.
but I, you know,
That's almost 60 days.
I mean, you know, if you're continuing it out till the next meeting, I mean, they're either, in my opinion, in my experience, you're either gonna be able to figure out whether you're gonna move, they can move the pool or they can by the next meeting. You can continue it out to the next meeting, see if they haven't figured it out, because I don't know what kind of time frame they're on in terms of, you know, spring's coming, they want to turn dirt and get this project moving. Have an opportunity, my recommendation is that you would set it over to the next meeting, allow for them for continued dialogue with the neighborhood group. They can come back and set it on your next agenda. If they still don't have it done and they think that there's a chance of more time will allow them to get it done, well then you extend out that point without terribly throwing off their development schedule. That would be my recommendation.
So you're recommending 30 days versus 60 days?
Yeah, but I would, because, you know, I wasn't telling you you shouldn't vote to table it until the next meeting. I just wanted you all to know what the effect of that. To me, your original motion seems appropriate, but you know, I don't vote. I'm just telling you based on my experience. If you set it out to the next meeting, they can figure out whether they can work something out or not. And if they can't, then you'll know. And you can adjudge the validity and the earnestness of their efforts within that 30 days. And if they think they need more time to work it out, then they can get 30 more days.
Okay, then I'm gonna keep my motion the way it is, which includes the friendly, which just includes the word extension versus table. I'm gonna keep that.
So can you read back the motion, please?
He said we don't have to do that. They can bring it up the next meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask a question. I have a question after we clarify what this is.
I think it says, move to extend till the plan can be resubmitted to reflect the change in the location of the pool and clubhouse by the April PC meeting is what you said your friendly amendment was before.
Can you reread the motion again? I'm sorry.
Okay. Move for an extension till the plan can be submitted to reflect a change in the location of the pool and clubhouse by the April Planning Commission meeting.
What was that last part?
By the April Planning Commission meeting.
Did I add that?
You had,
You did add that.
Okay, that was my friendly amendment, wasn't it?
That was your friendly amendment.
Which was approved by the second. So since I've got that on the table, I'll leave that as it stands with
Okay.
the 60 days. Or
Commissioner-
April.
Commissioner Gardner.
So I still have a question of scope, and the reason is that you stated that we can postpone this for further study. This isn't postponing for further study. This is mandating that they change their plan. So but I'm uncomfortable with this because we're essentially telling them they have to change their plan. That's outside of our scope.
I don't disagree with you. I mean, your code allows for an extension for further analysis.
Right, and this isn't further analysis, this is telling them they have to change their plan.
I agree with you.
So what I'm saying is I think the motion
Yeah,
invalid?
So if it's an invalid motion, then we can't move forward with it.
That's my question is whether or not it's an invalid motion. I think it's an invalid motion, but that's just my non-legal opinion.
Right. I mean, I agree it's beyond the scope of what is permitted by the code section that I provided for. All I can do is offer advice. You know, the chair is actually the one who can deem
Well, I understand the sentiment, but I do tend to agree that it's not really our place to direct applicants how to design their property. So I'm also not comfortable with the language as presented. I would entertain a motion for further study or something along those lines if you wish to make that.
What's the difference? That's what we're telling them to do.
No, but the difference in legal terms is vast. You're telling them they have to change their plan before they can bring it back.
Could we put
Clarify
that
that.
would say, we would like to see if the developer could come back or go for further analysis or study to see if moving the pool to another location within the development could be feasible.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, if he resubmits basically the same plan, it's beyond our scope to tell him to move it because he is within the zoning requirements and the land development code for.
The intent here is just to see if there's an alternative.
Well, so you could approve it subject to a stipulation about a design element, right? So
There you go.
that's within your purview.
Okay.
But that's not the motion on the table. I mean, the motion on the table is not one that is contemplated by the code. It's where basically what I understand an indefinite extension, which isn't provided for in the code, until they can go back and potentially work it out.
So at this point, we need the chair to make a decision on whether or not you can accept the motion or not, and then we'll go from there.
Right.
Yeah, and the original motion for an extension until they come back with a new plan, I don't believe is acceptable. If you want to make a different motion to extend for further study for the feasibility, then that would be acceptable.
So the minutes will reflect that.
If you could specifically state that you make a finding that the motion's out of order.
I make a finding that the motion on the table or on the floor is out of order and would entertain a different motion.
Before you move on, you need to extend your meeting, please.
I'd like to make a motion to
Extend the meeting to 10:30.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner McNair and a second by Commissioner Bowden that we extend the meeting until 10:30. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Michelle.
So I still have a question if I can ask, please.
Yes, sir.
Is there Attorney Dean?
Yes.
Yeah, you are.
You are.
Because there's legal ramifications to this, in my opinion. If, let's say the developer comes back and says, we talked and it needs to be here, which I think he's been relatively adamant about tonight. But if he says it needs to be here, do we have the scope to tell him no? That you must put it somewhere else or not develop? From my understanding, and I'm not a lawyer, but from my understanding through training and so forth, is that's not necessarily within our scope.
So the question, well, it's kind of a tough question because I understand that the pool is a permitted use. He couldn't just come in and build a clubhouse and a pool there if it wasn't associated with the residential development. And so, in my opinion, and he's asking for rezoning on the piece that's zoned commercial. And he's asking for rezoning to residential on that. And so as part of that application, then, the clubhouse and the pool are tied to that application. So in a strict sense, if all he's proposing is a pool and a clubhouse on that site, then it's probably a commercial use. And so would it be permitted there? Probably not. But it's related to the RP3 considering is, in the first action, is the rezoning of the property to the RP3. And he says he's got to have the pool and clubhouse to make that thing go. So your action on the rezoning, you're taking a couple actions that relate to that. One is the rezoning from the commercial to the RP3. You can deny that based on his statement that he's got the necessity for the pool and clubhouse to support it and say, well, if you have to have it, we find that the pool and clubhouse in that location to support your RP3 doesn't work, therefore we're denying the rezoning. And that's permitted under the different factors in the code. The other piece that you're considering is that is a planned development zone, right? Yep. It was an RP3 planned development zone. That's different than just a regular R3 zoning district. When that developer came through and got that plan approved, they approved a specific plan. So to revise that plan, it's part of the actual underlying zoning decision. And so, yes, the use in the R3 district, when it's tied to residential, is a permitted use, but he's got an approved plan there, and so that is wrapped up in that underlying zoning decision. So that's a long-winded way of saying, I do think you have the authority to deny the application if you determine that that use, meaning the entirety of the use, the RP3 as proposed with the pool and the clubhouse in that location, and its effect on the adjacent property interests, all those things that are laid out in your code, I think you can make that determination.
So we would have to deny the entire RP3 part.
That would
basically.
That would be my recommendation.
Question for council. Are you done? Commissioner Biden, are you done? I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're fine.
You're good? Okay.
It's a single application, so that's what I'm saying.
Right. I had a question for council.
I mean, there's one vote.
I had a question. If we, is it within our scope to ask that that a design element of the plan, if I understood what you're telling us correctly, because this is an RP3, it means it has to have a planned, it's a planned type of zoning, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so an element of that plan could cause disruption for the entire approval, is that correct? If there's something that was deemed unworkable or whatever, is that a possibility? Does ask that they come back with a revision to that or an alternative?
Well, I'd have to,
Specifically, when you look at this plan, the pool could go right in the center of the apartment buildings and wouldn't have a huge cost differential. Well, building a pool, and leaving the clubhouse where it's at is leaving the clubhouse where it's at. So could we ask that an alternative for that be done as part of the planned zoning?
So again, the only thing I would do in response to that question is look at your options relative to the application that's in front of you. They're laid out very clearly in the code. You can either approve the application with conditions or modifications to lessen or mitigate a potential impact from the proposed application. So under 2, right, I've said this earlier, attached stipulations which in your mind would mitigate the impact on the surrounding property.
So if we said there was a stipulation that says the pool has to be moved into the center of the apartment complex for both safety and other reasons? Is that something that is within our purview?
So here's the problem with that, and I think this is a staff question as well, is that you, if we're passing this as a zoned, or pardon me, planned zone, you all don't have a plan in front of you reflecting that. So you don't have anything to take action on.
So we could extend this to the next council, or to the next meeting, or in April.
Yeah, I mean, we keep going through all these iterations. I think if you really, you don't think that they've had an earnest conversation with the neighborhood about whether they can work it out or not, if you continue it to next meeting, then, and tell them, hey, you need to go have another conversation with the neighbors about this location, and then they come back and they report to you as to their efforts in that respect. You can judge whether or not you feel it was an earnest effort or not, and vote up or down after that. That's
Okay.
my recommendation.
I have a motion then that we continue this to the March meeting.
I still have, if you continue this and the developer comes back with the same plan, then we still vote on this plan again.
Still it can still be continued
So, I mean,
indefinitely.
Well, you can only continue it out for 60 days.
Okay, but specifically in my motion, what I'd like to say then is that it's continued to the March meeting to try to find a way to mitigate the issues of the pool between the developer and the neighborhood. And based on that, we'll make an up or down vote.
So I have a motion on the floor. Can I get a second? Failing to get a second, the motion dies.
I think we go ahead and go forward with the motion. I'm gonna vote against it because I think time could be our ally, and I think there could be a chance to seek some compromise. I might eventually vote for this if it would come back to us, but I'm gonna vote no because I think we need more time. Our developer said he just found out about some of this, some of the changes. He just threw a pool in.
you can.
What are you saying I said?
You said that the city had just told you about some of these changes.
It's not a public
recently.
meeting at this point, so.
Not the time.
Public hearing.
So then let's make the motion as it is here, and then if people want to deny it, then they'll deny it.
Fine.
I'd entertain a motion on this item.
After review of application Z-19-01 and PDP-19-01 for Waverly Plaza, a rezoning and associated preliminary development plan for property located at the northeast corner of Waverly Road and West Santa Fe Street, tax IDs CF 221423-2004, CF 221423-2001, CF 221423-2011, and preliminary development plan document dated February 26th, 2019, and staff report dated February 26th, 2019. The Planning Commission recommends the governing body approve the application subject to the following conditions. Number 1, remove the grade fence off the property of the proposed Tract A shown on page C1 and C4. Update the on-street parking count on the first parking block from the north on the east side of Laurel Street from 9 to 7, and then update the parking data on the page. Number 3, update the parking count of the center east parking block along the drive on the east side of the property from 10 to 9, and then update the parking data on the page. Number 4, revise any sidewalks along parking with vehicle overhangs to be a minimum of 8 feet wide in the residential area, deviation 6. Number 5, revise sidewalks which are primary routes between the street or parking area to the building entrance to be a minimum of 8 feet wide, deviation 7.
Second.
I have a motion by Gardner with a second by Bowden. Any additional commission questions? Any additional staff comments? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-3. Regular agenda item number 2B. Consider a preliminary plat for a 5-lot commercial and residential subdivision.
This just carry on from what we've been discussing, which lays out the lots for the plan. Staff finds that the application is generally consistent with the comprehensive plan. Plat is in compliance with the Land Development Code. The development construction timeline corresponds with the adjacent public improvement timelines, and all technical studies have been submitted and approved. Apparently, okay. Staff does recommend approval of preliminary plat PP 1901 for Waverly Plaza with the conditions. They have changed that plat based on that tract A, changing it from tract 1, A1 to A2. So again, in the suggested motion, you would need to reflect that date. And the conditions are with approval of Z 1901 and PDP 1901, and providing cross-access easement for driveway access from West Santa Fe Street and access from Waverly Road.
Thank you. Planning Commission questions, discussion?
So are we talking about the retail area now? Is that the?
This is the overall preliminary plat.
Okay.
We're approving this.
So, yeah, so we've moved on from the rezoning, and now we're on to the plat itself. Questions? Tori?
No, I'm good.
No.
Commissioner Gardner, Commissioner Lee, Commissioner Bowden.
Oh, actually, I do have, I'm
Commissioner
sorry,
Gardner.
I have a comment. I will say that my parents' house, when we were growing up, had a farmhouse and a field behind it. And they leveled the farmhouse and field and put in an auto zone. And so my home, when I was in middle school and high school, if you open your windows, you would have a nice red hue coming through and turned everything in the room pink. I truly believe that when you have houses, that there needs to be a buffer zone between houses and retail. That's just my personal opinion. And so I appreciate the fact that there's going to be an apartment complex between the residential properties, multifamily, and then you have the retail. So just wanted to make that comment.
Okay. Commissioner Bowden? Commissioners? Having no additional comments from the commission, I would entertain a motion on this item.
I move motion after review of applications PP-19-02 for Waverly Plaza, a preliminary plat for property located at the northeast corner of Waverly Road and West Santa Fe Street, tax IDs CF 221423-2004, CF 221423-2001, CF 221423-2011, and preliminary plat dated February 26, 2019, and staff report dated February 26, 2019. The Planning Commission approves the application as proposed, provided the following conditions are met. Number 1, approval of Z-19-01 PDP-19-01 is completed. Number 2, provide a cross-access easement for the driveway access from West Santa Fe Street and access from Waverly Road.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Bowden with a second by Commissioner Roberts. Any additional commission discussion? Any additional staff comments? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries 5-2. Did I count that right? Yeah, 5-2. Discussion item 1, results of the commission survey.
Remember that question about workload and hopefully you're not changing your mind after tonight. I don't know if you got a chance to look at the results of the survey. I just want to say to all of you, I really appreciate you taking the time to give us that feedback. We take that seriously to our hearts, and your help was it was very helpful. Just to kind of tell you what we heard. Oh, I went blank. What happened? Oh, thank you. Okay, for personal orientation, from what we heard, we're going to continue this practice with all new commissioners, and we're going to continue to improve and put thought into it and be sure and thoroughly answer all the questions. The workload doesn't really seem to be scaring anyone away, so y'all said not more than expected, so it was a good thing. And all of you said the staff reports are long but basically useful. Thank you for reading them. We appreciate that. You all said staff presentations were about the right length. And on the staff response to questions, most of you said that was effectively, and really that's a team thing, you know, between everyone, trying to get those questions answered. So you're a part of this team, and so that's helpful also. I didn't see anything that you wanted really different for communications outside the meetings, like sending you your notebooks and sending you emails and things like that. But we will notify you in advance of contentious issues. That was one of the comments. And we tried to do that in this case to let you know ahead of time. Thank you too for those presentation tips that were very specific, and we're listening to those. Now, how did you feel? The impact of your volunteerism, that was kind of a mixed bag there. But one helpful comment was that we should let you know what the council does with the final decision, come back to you with some news on what happened from your decisions going forward. So we'll make sure to do that. As far as whether you feel appreciated, mostly yes. People had mentioned the pool passes, the invitation to sit at City Hall for parades. I think it indicated you felt more appreciated by staff than the community, and that you're kind of unsung heroes. You probably are feeling a little bit about that right now. This is a tough evening, but we do definitely appreciate you. And thanks for trying to recruit more people to be on the Planning Commission. I approve that too. I appreciate that too. Continued volunteerism, half likely, half not, but some of you had other reasons, and you're willing to serve the city in other ways, so thank you also for that. And your other suggestions were to collect data, look for trends, set goals, and monitor. I want to know who that is so they can tell me what to do, because I appreciate that. Printed copy of codes and comprehensive plan. Do you all feel like that would be helpful to have a printed copy of the code, or how many, I guess, because we're willing to do that?
Yeah, I think sometimes it'd be nice to have it here instead of trying to find it.
Yeah, it's easier to flip through, right? Yeah. So how many of you would like a printed copy?
I mean, is that like a big old thick notebook? Or?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's going to be a weightlifting exercise.
Just taking a PDF, I'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you could get me an iPad, I'll take it in PDF form. Just.
I can't give you an iPad. So how many hard copies? 2 or what?
I'll borrow Bowden's when I need it.
4. 4? Going? Okay. let's see, more time to review the packet. That is a tough one. We have a very short time frame that we have to turn these applications around. We get them 6 weeks before the meeting, gives us a week to review and get their first review comments to them. They have a week to respond. We have a week to get our second review comments out. They have a week to respond. And then the next week, we have to get your packets to you. And that's after administration looks at it and all that. But we will try to get it out sooner if we can.
And even when you do get our packets out to us, there's still changes afterwards, so you're making changes all
Yeah.
the way up to the time we get our packets, so.
Okay.
Just wanted to let you know I appreciate you guys.
Oh, thank you. And then somebody mentioned, getting to know each other and staff better, and if you had any suggestions on that, I'm up for suggestions on how we can make that happen too.
But we'd have to be careful not to break coma.
Yeah.
Right, so, give that some thought so we don't interfere with our open meetings, thing like that. All right, thank you again.
Thank you
for
doing
all
it.
that you do.
Any other items from staff this evening?
I'd like to make a motion, we close the meeting.
Before we do that, we've been here for almost 3.5 hours. I just want to say it's okay to disagree. That's how we can get better as an organization. When you disagree agreeably, it makes it even better. And I feel like as a group, we accomplished that tonight. So I applaud my colleagues. Thank you, and applaud our staff.
Yeah.
It was our first non-unanimous vote
Right.
tonight. So.
Well, no, we had one where Brady was by himself. I remember that vote.
I don't remember that.
I've been by myself before, but that was before you guys came on.
But I did just want to, I was going to say it to you after the meeting that I appreciate the dialogue back and forth.
That's how we get better.
Okay, so I have a motion to adjourn by Gardner.
Second.
And a second by Bowden. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Meeting is adjourned.